Oh, hello. I don't know what that was. No idea. Really cold today, so I might be a bit loopy, bit more loopy than normal. Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome, welcome. It's Fox from Model Making Guru. It is Friday. No, it's not Friday. It's Sunday. I go, start as you mean to go on. It's Warhammer Sunday. It's that time of the week when I do some Warhammer goodness. And you guys hang out with me in the chat, and we have a good time. Now, before we get going, as always, let me get all the shout outs out of the way. First and foremost, to all the people who make my content possible, my lovely, beautiful patrons and YouTube channel members, my patrons who join me at patreon.com/modelmakingguru, and my YouTube channel members who became members by clicking the join button under any one of my videos. Both those groups support this channel each month. Financially, they pay my bills, they put food on my table, they make all this possible, they make it possible for me to do this for my living. So big massive thank you to them. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you want to become one and help support the channel and get access to stuff early ad free, just go to patreon.com/modelmakingguru, click the join button under any video. There you go, dead easy, and you can keep this channel alive. Also to my corporate supporters, emodels.co.uk and goblingaming.co.uk, both your one-stop shop for all your model making and tabletop gaming needs. Links in the description below the video. Make sure you use those links because it tells them I sent you, and therefore I get some income from that, from your purchase. Doesn't cost you anything. Big massive thank you to them as well. So welcome, welcome. You may notice I have out the scruffy mat of paintage. I know, you don't often see this on live streams. We're going to be doing some scruffy paintage, well, not scruffy paintage, some paintage on the scruffy mat. We're going to be doing some painting today. Now, I'm going to try and do some painting on camera on the stream. Basically, I'm going to do some work on the Ork bomb Dakar jet that I'm working on. Just stuff I need to do anywhere that I wouldn't necessarily film while I was filming it for, the actual video build. So I thought I might as well try and do it during the live stream. It gets it done and out of the way. It might not be a good idea. It's small and it might be fiddly and not easy for me to paint and on camera, and it might not be possible for you to see much. So if half an hour, really, if it looks like arse and it's not really working, I'll just put it away and we'll just carry on building whatever we were building last time. But yes, we'll try and do some painting. But yes, welcome, welcome. Before we get going, now I'm going to say, first of all, apologies. Probably will see the top of my head at some point because I'm right here. Hello. You'll see my head while I'm painting like this. So I do apologise if that happens. But let's have a quick look at see who we've got in chat very, very quickly. As always, this is a typical one of my streams. So we've got the live chat archive here, usually about a minute or two behind. Do feel free to come and join the live chat. This is all about you guys having a place to hang out while I crack on with some building or some painting. That's all that matters. It's a place for you guys to hang out while we're all stuck at home in lockdown. Come and join us in the live chat. If you're watching it on embedded in Facebook or Twitter or somewhere else, just click the YouTube icon that's down here in the bottom right hand corner. That'll take you to YouTube where you can carry on watching and you can join the live chat. In the live chat, we have, as far as I can see here, the first person in was Wendy Hickson, who says good afternoon, Fox and everyone else. We have Mayhem Model Works, who also says Blah Patron, which is correct. Reggie Models in says Thwip. We have Wendy Hickson again. William Rayborn is in. Welcome, William. Dad at Scaly Models is one of your moderators. Your moderators are lovely, fluffy forest creatures with big, sad eyes and lovely and fluffy, and they'll keep you safe and keep you protected. But if you cross them, they'll burn you alive and feed you to the rats. And then the pigs. Feed the rats to the pigs. And then feed the pigs to the horses. Feed the horses to the children in the council estate. And then they'll launch the council estate into the heart of the sun. So don't cross the mods. It's not worth crossing the mods. I'm going to adjust my microphone. Hang on. And I've just realised you can't see them, but I do have Guthorm, of course, and Squishy, if I can get him off his little hook. Come here. Guthorm, and of course Squishy are here with me. You just can't see them because they're off camera. Because the camera's in a different place. Don't forget, of course, if you are watching this and you are in chat, I will have the chat. I've got it in front of me on my iPad here. I will be looking close up at things with my magnifying lenses, so it's hard for me to see the chat in focus very easily. So it is all about chat. I will respond to your chat as much as I can. But if you want to catch my attention, please make sure to put your comment in big fat capital letters so I have a chance to see it when it's over there and a bit out of focus. Or if you want to, you can at me at Model Making Guru in the chat, and that'll put an orange thing where my name is, and that'll tell me to look at the comment. Or if you really want to, you can use a super chat by clicking the little dollar symbol at the bottom of the chat window. That gets your comment in a coloured bar, so I get a chance to see it, but it also helps support this channel as well. It gives me a little bit of income from that. So massive thank you if you do that. You don't have to do that. Who else have we got? We have Wendy Hickson, David Sanderson's in. Welcome, David. Been a while since I was here. Hope everyone is well. We're all fine, thank you. He says, speaking for everybody without their permission. There you go. We have, who else have we got? Colin at Festa67's Workshop's in, another one of your lovely, lovely mods who will take care of you, but will burn you alive if you cross them. So don't mess with the mods. If you've come from watching Colin and Dave's show this morning, hello again. I always try and watch it on a Sunday afternoon. I try not to watch it on a Saturday afternoon because it's on a Sunday afternoon. That would be kind of stupid. So welcome to Colin. Big dad hugs and Festa hugs in both directions there. We have the Raging Model we've done. Graham Robert is in. Hi, Dad and everyone. William Rayborn says Fox. David Sanderson saying hello to everybody. Timothy Kalako says morning. Welcome, Timothy. Lynn Dipple is in as well. Just crawled out of bed. Time to feed Face and feed Sweetie. Sorry, I missed Colin. Be right back. Hi, y'all, she says. Doesn't often get to watch my stream, so it's nice she's got time off. Graham Robert hopes that Mama Fox is okay. She's fine, thank you. William Rayborn says that YouTube seems okay. Raging Model's having some issue with YouTube, but I don't know. What are you watching on wireless on some little portable device? Because then it's entirely down to probably that. I would suspect that you're on Wi-Fi. You're on Mac. That would also expect it because you're on Mac, so nothing works on Mac. I am joking, only joking. Lee Stevenson's in. Welcome, Lee. We have, let's have a look. Today on Warhammer Sunday, Fox does some traditional folk dancing with our special guest Corvus Corax, Primarch of the Raven Guard Space Marine Legion, says Timothy Galaka. Have you been watching my scripts? My preview scripts? Cancel that and do something else then. Colin, oops, Lynn's throwing lots of hearts at Colin. Where are we? Catch up with chat. Quanoman is in, so everybody take cover and avoid all the sharp or hide all the sharp things. Phil East is in. Welcome, Phil. Hi all. YouTube playing up at Fox had to exit and rejoin 3 times before the adverts triggered. That's weird. Then it must be YouTube and not anybody's rubbish Wi-Fi connection. Adam says today YouTube and I are not friends. Yes. Bench Gretch. Oh, okay. Dad has asked the question, I think, already, because somebody's already answered it. So I assume Dad's answered it. I haven't seen it. So I assume Dad has asked the question. Yes, he has. There we go. Okay, folks, before I'm told off, what's on your bench and what's in your belly? Yes. What you're working on right now doesn't have to be a model kit. It could be a painting or a drawing or a shelf. You could be assembling a Detolf cabinet or a TV unit, or you could be fixing a chair. It could be anything. What kind of craftical thing are you doing? And what's in your belly? What are you going to have for your dinner, or what have you had for your dinner? Excuse me, depending on where you are in the world and what time it is. Raging Modeler says bench Gretchen, painting and orcs. A lot of orcs. Belly tea. Philly says cheese straws in the belly and various Warhammer stuff on the bench. The mods are part of the Inquisition, says Timothy. Absolutely, but you're not expected. Unexpected, wasn't it? Yes, they are unquestionable, my mods. Only the Emperor himself can countermand their orders. Bench flying base for tuna drone. Whoa. Hang on. Tuna drones, Fox. What the hell is a tuna drone? Oh, dear Lord. My reading skills are low today. Tuna drones, apparently, Lee Stevenson's making. He's making a nice set of tuna drones. I'll read that again. Bench flying base for Tau drones. It's because he spelled it T-U-A. He misspelled it, so I read it's tuna. Tau drones, belly will be left over curry. This is correct. Bench is my Strike Rouge plus Otori, which is Japanese for big bird. Says Nim, and belly will be cheeseburger macaroni. Oh, I need all that. Hello, Nim, by the way. Wayne Hayward is in. Welcome, Wayne. Philly says cheeseburger macaroni sounds amazing. I know, I don't know what it is, but I need it in my face right now. Right now. Lord High Bobbins says, hello, chums. Welcome, Lord High Bobbins. If you notice the people with funny coloured names, by the way, and things next to their names, they're channel members. They're lovely, lovely channel members. Become one. You get a coloured thing next to your name. William Rayborn says, belly is coffee. Bench is the 3 1/8 scale bodies to paint. Okie dokie. Hello to everyone who's coming since I've been prattling around trying to get YouTube chat to work, says Adam. Cheeseburger macaroni sounds awesome, says Lee. You need to put pictures in the boom hut, please, Nim, because none of us know outside the US know what cheeseburger macaroni is. So we need all of that. Unless it's just cheeseburger and macaroni, in which case that still sounds awesome. Nim says it's hamburger helper. We don't know what that is either. Lynn Dipple says belly, maple and brown sugar oatmeal. Sweetie's having baby lima beans and corn. Bench and need to finish Lego Architecture's Sydney Opera House. Yeah. Hey, Sweetie. Baby lima beans. Oh. It's traditional American slop. Belly, coffee, bench, trying to work through a backlog of Warhammer, says David Sanderson. Wayne Haywood says bench, dread minis. Belly, honey glazed gammon joint. Ooh. And Black Rifle Model Works Lee says, afternoon, folks. Welcome, my friend. Bench is Thunderwolf Cavalry. Yes. And belly is nothing as of yet. Homemade lamb curry. Yes, if you don't know your Warhammer 40k, the Fenrisian Space Wolves, they're not actually wolves. Now, given that the Space Wolves Space Marines initiation involves going out and killing a Thunderwolf or a Fenrisian wolf, what they actually, I won't reveal any secrets, spoilers, but it's very, very dark. Let's just leave it at that. But keep in mind they have to kill one and bring back its pelt to be initiated as a space. It's one part of their initiation. It goes really dark. Anyway, yes, today we are going to try. Edward Leonard's in. Welcome, Edward. We're not going to try Edward Leonard, obviously. We're going to try some painting. So, as you know, I have been for the last week doing no streaming because I've been working on the Boom Dakar. Well, it's kind of like a WASDAKA Boom Jet, Dakar Jet. It's kind of a mishmash of various ones. But I'm working on the Ork Flyer for my very good friends over at Goblin Gaming. And so far, I've got that much done. I've got that far on the actual flyer itself. Do keep in mind this is on a webcam, so it looks a bit gnarly. I've got that much done so far on the flyer itself. I'm just in the process still of blocking in all the base colours. We've got loads to do yet. There's still tons of stuff to do. We've got the base colours blocked in, so I'll put that back on its stand. But what I've got to do, I am of course filming it for them, for their channel. And what I need to do the black and white checkers. So we've got a few bits I'm going to do black and white checkers on. I'm not going to do it on the plane because it's too big. I need to film that bit. But I do have to do some black and white checkers on the two bombs. Now, I figured today, because I'm going to film painting the black and white checkers on one of the flaps on the wing, and then I'll just get the rest painted off camera. So I figured I may as well use my 3 hours today to actually make a start on getting the black and white checkers painted on the two big boom bomb. What are they called? Boom bombs. No, bomb. I can't remember what they're called now. Let me have a look in the instructions. Hang on. They're called hang on. It's going to be some particularly it doesn't say. They are, I think they're called boomer bombs or boom bombs or something. I just love they've got a teleport mega blaster, but it's spelled T-E-L-L-Y, teleport mega blaster. I love the name Stick Bomb Flinger. There's a thing on the back of one of the plane variants that throws stick bombs out. I love the name Smash a Gun. Hang on. It only gives you stats for one of them. Come on, what are they called? They're called something. I know it says it somewhere. I might say it on the box, but I can't be bothered getting that out. So let's just assume they're called boom bombs or something like that. Anyway, so we need to paint some black and white patterning on here, some checkers. So what I've been thinking about how to do it, and what I'm actually going to do is do the black and white checker pattern on this central part here. I thought about doing it on the tip here, but doing a black and white checker pattern over a compound curve like that is kind of a ball ache, because do you have them getting smaller towards the middle, or do you have them uniform, in which case they look kind of weird? So I figured the easiest way to do it is either do it on the tail here or on this bit. And I'm going to do it on this central bit. So today what we're going to do is I'm going to see if I can stop my nose running. We're going to see if I can paint some black and white checker pattern on at least one of them. Now, it is a slow process, and what I hope, I've shown how to do it before, but what I hope to show you today is how slow a process it actually is. So when you see like Duncan or someone go, we'll do some white, then we'll do some black, and there you go, checker pattern. No, it's not. There's back and forth. There's lots of farting about. The difficulty is, of course, I've got to get close up and do it. So we'll see how it goes. It might be an absolute flustercluck, in which case I'll stop and I'll just go and build the other thing I was building last week, but we'll see how it goes. So I've got my wet palette of fatness. Thank you very much. I'm going to use 4 colours. Well, I'm going to use at least 4 colours. We have to do black and white. We have checkers. We have Celestra Grey is our base. We have Ulthuan Grey is a burp, is our layer. That tasted like cheese and onion crisps because I've had cheese and onion crisps. Ulthuan Grey is our next layer. And then we have Abaddon Black, obviously for the black. And then if we need it, we have some white scar, but we might not need that. We'll also use, potentially, some Agraxian Earth shadings. There you go. So that might be all the colours we need. Hello, people are pinging me emails. Hang on, what am I being mailed about now? Okay, someone's just emailed e-models about something. Right, somebody sent an email to Ted asking him a question. I'll have a look at that later. Right. So, big of coffee. Now, the entire sticking point today is if I can get close enough to the thing to look at it and see what I'm painting. And because I can't, normally I'd sit with this right close to my face, but we've got the camera here, so we'll see how it goes. Don't treat this as like a tutorial, because I'll probably just be talking and waffling. I'm not doing much work, and I can't get the camera in a good angle to show you. I've got it above, because if I do it from the side, all you see is the back of my hand doing that, and probably all you'll see is the back of my hand. Yeah. So, first we're going to do is to do black and white checkers, we're going to need to paint this part white. Now, golden rule of painting white: don't paint white. Don't just start painting with white, because all you'll get is sadness and hatred and anger, and you'll kill something, you'll break something, you'll just give up the will to live. So don't do that. White is a very transparent colour. If I tried painting this white scar on there, it'd be just like I'd just have give up the will to live. So you have to start from a neutral base, thick, opaque colour. I don't mean thick as in stodgy, I mean colour-wise thickness. It's opaque, it's not transparent. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with Celestra Grey. Bearing in mind we're going to paint white, we need something neutral. When you're painting whites, if you're brush painting, you want like a grey or a very light grey, or just any kind of neutral colour that's basically going to show through but not affect it too much. This will make sense because we're going to start with Celestra Grey. The entire purpose of the Celestra Grey is to cover up the red. That's its entire purpose, but at the same time be neutral enough that it doesn't really show up too much through the white. So we're going to go with the Celestra Grey. Then, if we went over with just white, then still transparent, you still have a very bluish white. So what we need to do is step it up with a layer colour, and the layer colours are quite transparent, base colours are quite opaque. So this entire purpose is to block out the red and leave a neutral base. Then we put on the Ulthuan Grey, which is halfway between that and white, and its entire purpose is to reduce the impact of that on the white. Then what we're going to do is we're not going to do anything after that apart from the black squares. You might be thinking, well, why are we painting white but stopping at grey? If we go in then with white, how do we do a highlight? If I paint the white squares white, how do we do a highlight on that? We can't, because you can't put a highlight on white because it's white. So what you actually do is you stop Ulthuan Grey. But that leaves you the option of adding highlights where you need them in white. Because if I put that next to something that's actually white, you can see it's not white. But if I put that next to something that's black, your brain is tricked into thinking, oh, that's probably white. You don't notice that it's a just off white. So whenever you're painting black and white checkers, don't be tempted to go for, you go for black, but don't be tempted to go for white unless you need to do a highlight. You need to leave yourself some room. Now, normally I would also say, don't paint in black because you can't go darker than black, but we're not worried about that for checkers. It's not a problem. You could go with a very dark grey instead and do the same in reverse, but it doesn't really matter for black and white checkers. It's more the whites you're worried about. So let's get cracking. So I've got some brushes. I have my broken toed brushes here, which I'm absolutely adoring, and I've got some GW brushes as well. I have to tell you though, these broken toed brushes, not that I'm sponsored by or supported by them in any way, shape or form, although I am open to it, but just fantastic. Right, so let me get a base brush is what I want first of all. Excuse me. You find a base brush. Brush. That one up there. I like these base brushes just for the first initial coat. what we're going to do is we are going to get ourselves the Celestra Grey. So remember, base paints are opaque. Layer paints are more transparent. It's not always the case. Some base paints can be a little bit transparent, but not always the case. So, but if you keep in mind, base paints are opaque. And more often than not, base paints are a good way to start off a colour that's going to go on top. So if I'm painting yellow, for example, I might want to use Uriel Yellow, which is really bright colour. But if I start painting with that, it's going to be absolute ass because it's a very transparent colour. So what I would do is start with Avalanche Sunset, which is a base paint, which is a nice warm yellow and is very opaque. That's the trick. All about your base colours. Quick look at the chat. Anything happening? Question, how would you like... Lynn says, would you like me to do another Guess What I'm Building? I have a new one to start. Yeah, it's your channel, Lynn. Make all the things, film all the things, and put as much content on the channel as you can. Timothy says, meanwhile, Army Painter paints are all transparent. I've never tried them, but I have heard they are quite not very opaque. So we're going to go in. Now, trick. Here's another handy trick. You're doing a bit of learning today, but not too much. Wet palette. This brush, I just licked the bristles and it tastes like... No, I'm not going to tell you what it tastes like because it'll be rude to take. Anyway, yes, got some on the wet palette. No water added to it. Keep in mind, I shall get the tiniest touch of water from my cup that you can't see because of chat. The tiniest touch. Some of it off on a tissue. I'm going to take it from the edge. The trick is to get your paint from the edge. Don't go in the middle. Go from the edge. Because you want, you're applying this paint. The reason I'm using a base brush is I want this to be nice and smooth and flat. I'm going to go on. Now it's quite transparent. You can see, hopefully, it's not really very opaque right now. That's because I've over-thinned it a little bit, to be honest. There's enough water in the wet palette to keep it flowing, but it's actually a little bit too much. Well, that's fine. I'd much rather the paint go on too thin than it go on too thick. There's the whole trick here with checkers, especially anything where you're painting white, is to keep it as smooth as possible. You can see all this beautiful pre-shading that I went to all the trouble of sorting out is now vanishing. No. Sometimes the hardest thing when you're doing a build is that you have it looking brilliant, but you know you've got to cover it up with something else. I always come up against that. It's just something you have to get used to. Now, do let me know in the chat. I'll do my best to keep in touch with the chat, but do let me know if this is unwatchable because all you can see is the back of my hand or what have you. It might be that when I get to doing the little fiddly bits, it might become untenable because I've got to get close up. I don't know yet. We shall see. I'm just for the moment blocking this in. I'm trying to keep the brush going in the same direction every time. And the trick is not really to go over something you've already brushed for a little while. Don't go right over paint you've just painted. Otherwise, you'll ruck it up and it'll look terrible. You'll make a mess. I've got some paint on the wrong bit there. Oops. Now, I'm not too fussed if I make a little bit of a mess here and there. And get that off with some water. Yeah. I'm not too fussed if I make a little bit of a mess on some bits. Because this will be ultimately have some chipping and stuff put on it. So some messes will be hidden, forgiven. I've painted these bits metal and I'm going to have to touch those up later on because I'll make a mess of them, no doubt. I should have painted them before I decided I was going to do this bit. Okay, so that's roughly blocked in. Like I said, it is an opaque base paint, but as you can see, it is still to a certain degree quite transparent. You can still see through it. But that's because I thinned it a little bit with extra water. But also, that's how paint works. I'm going to put that to one side. I need a bit of foam. Hang on. We found a bit of foam. Foam. Yeah, put that there. Another one. Do the same again. Yes, I'm not bothered right now that this paint is streaky and transparent. Because that's why we'll do more than one, but less than three, or maybe even three, thin coats. So you can see on the wet palette here, I'm not adding lots of extra water to this. I'm just taking it from the palette because there's enough moisture in there, if your palette's a wet palette, that it keeps the paint flowing. Now what I like to do to try and get a smooth finish on some of these base paints is use a base brush because it's flat and you can smush it, but I like to kind of put the paint on and then spread it around like butter, because not for too long, because obviously if you do it for too long you'll start rucking the paint up, but if you kind of get the hang of it after a while. But for a few seconds you can move the paint around and spread it flat, and this way you're giving it a real flat profile and hopefully reducing the chance of brush marks. But what we'll do is we'll have to do more than one coat, because we want to cover up this red completely. This is the entire point of this base coat. I'm going to blow on this because I need to go back on myself, but I don't want to mess the paint up. Apologies if I go off camera or out of focus at any point. This is the price you pay for me actually doing some painting on stream. I know. No. But there will be weathering added to this bomb and stuff later on, so I'm not too fussed if it's not beautiful right now. There we go. That's that coat on. These bits will get painted different colours, these little sort of plates and stuff. So I'll just rinse my brush off. So this is the trick with painting these base colours. You want to get your wet palette obviously moist. Add a tiny amount of water at the start, but always go from the edge. You'll never see me going into the middle of the pile, because what you want is the smoothest paint. Oh, hello, matron. Apologies. You want this, and if you go from the middle, you're just getting a big fat dot of paint on your brush, and then you splob it. You're going to get brush marks. It's all about keeping it smooth. Now, the downside of me doing that way is that I do end up making bigger and bigger patches of paint, because then it gets paint logged. But it just means I can pick up the smallest amount of paint on my brush and smush it flat. There we go. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to plug the hairdryer in. I will have to do some hair drying, I'm afraid. Find the hairdryer. It is my hairdryer. There it is. Hairdryer in. Give it a quick blast. Hang on. This probably sounds terrible, I know. That's just so I can go in with another coat of paint. Leave that one for a minute. Hang on, I need to move something. 1 second, folks. Hello, I'm throwing things around now. Hang on, I've dropped my jet engine. Oh, matron. 1 second. Adjusting my setup here. Yeah. Oh, I've got a place to put my hairdryer. Okay, so now it's had a few minutes to sit and cure a little bit. Southwest Modeler's in, can't sleep, so hello again everyone. Welcome, Southwest Modeler. Eon's car is back in, says I have returned. Welcome. TJ Lemaster is in. Welcome, TJ. I can see everything you're doing, it looks good. Anyway, yes, let's crack on. So we do a second coat now. Again, with the base brush. And the reason I'm using a base brush here, despite the fact I just sung the praises of my beautiful broken-toed brushes, is it's flat. It's all about minimising your brush strokes. If you use a pointy brush or a small round tip brush or something like that, you're going to put a lot of brush strokes, or you risk putting in more brush strokes than you want. Use a flat brush like this, you've got a chance of getting a nice smooth finish, because the brush splays out and goes flat, has a wideness to it that a pointy brush doesn't. Now the beauty of this being an Ork vehicle is that, of course, Orks aren't master craftsmen. They just slap things together. So if I don't do a perfect paint finish, it's not a problem. I mean, they're not going to spend that much time painting a bomb. So the one beauty about doing Orks is if you want to do a checker pattern, it doesn't matter if the checker pattern is a bit wonky. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, because it's an Ork painting it. They're just going to paint it and get it done. We can have a little bit of freedom and leeway here to make a little bit of a mess with this and not have it absolutely perfect. Yeah, I'm spreading the paint flat. I'm spreading it out with the flat brush, squishing it down. Not with a lot of pressure, but just enough that I'm kind of removing any really obvious brush marks. You will find that some of the brush marks do blend away as the paint cures. It does self-level a little bit. But don't count on that 100%. Also, don't count on me being able to find anywhere to do this without being in shot. Matron, I'm going to have to redo this metal bit, so no biggie. And I'm not worried about the paint going into this recess down here, because that'll get a bit of weathering in there to darken that recess panel line anyway, so yeah, I'm not too fussed. I don't want to risk going over the bit I've just painted. Let's just carefully put it here. You start working over paint that's only been on there for a few moments, you start risking pulling it up. So it's still streaky, still a bit rough around the edges, but we'll live. I'll put that there. Onto this one. We shall do the next coat. I can't promise this will be in any way interesting at all. Well, at least you might learn something. You might not. You might not. Anyway, I hope everyone is well. Hope you're all doing okay today. No great news to impart from you from this week. Excuse me. Apart from I didn't obviously do any gaming live streams at the end of this week because I was busy working on this. I need to get this done and filmed. My good buddies at Goblin, so I'm just cracking down on this last week and this week coming up. But again, you won't hear from me until next Sunday now, unless I finish it in the meantime before Friday, Thursday and Friday and Saturday. Need to get this done. I'm putting all my effort into this. And part of it was a Mojo returner, because my Mojo was on the floor. Let's be honest. My Mojo was at absolute bottom. You were. And so I was struggling a bit with other things I needed to do, and I've got the Lehman Rust to do, and I suddenly realised, well, why don't I just force myself to do the Goblin Gaming one? Not that I didn't want to do it, but if I say to the guys at Goblin, I'm going to crack on with it this week and you'll have it in the next couple of weeks, it kind of doesn't give me any choice that I've kind of got to do it. So whether my Mojo is on the floor or not doesn't matter. And it worked because it's given me the impetus and the oomph to actually crack on with it. That's that coat there. Brush a rinse. It's very important when you're painting that you rinse off your brush regularly. And I forgot to do it a bit there, but even if you're not changing colours and you're painting one colour for an hour, just rinse your brush off every few minutes. It gets any dried up paint out of the brush and means that you don't end up with lots of brush strokes because of a glob of dried paint that's dragged through the paint. Always give it a rinse. Give these a quick blast. Hairdryer. Did a hairdryer action. Do some montage music. I've no idea how that hairdryer sounds with all my compressors and limiters that are active on this microphone, by the way. I'm just going to move the hairdryer cable. Hang on. Because that's real. Keep getting stuck under my wheels. Okay. So, third coat. More than 2. Less than 12. Now with this one, hopefully you can see now it's a bit more opaque. It's starting to cover up that red. If I wanted a real kind of hand-painted, somebody painted it with a yard brush and did a bad job, I could leave it there and start building up the next colour and you'd have bits of red showing through. And that will probably be alright. But we'll go for one more coat. But because I've got most of the opacity now, I can actually work the paint a little bit thinner. Because if you do lots and lots and lots of coats, you end up covering up lots and lots of detail. Now the trick is, and it is a skill, can't really explain it to you, is learning how to know when to go for a thinner layer of paint. So I've actually thinned the paint a bit more now this time. That's probably a bit too much. Because what I'm interested in doing now is not necessarily building up another thick layer of paint, but just bringing it all together, removing any little tiny streaks a little bit. So this is actually thinner now. if I could just do another normal thick coat, but eventually you're going to start building up a real thick, massive coat of paint and it'll look a bit garbage. The kind of thing you could do with an airbrush in one coat, no problem, but we're not using an airbrush, as you've no doubt noticed. Again, just spreading the paint like butter, trying to get as much out of a brush full of paint as I can without spreading it too thin so it just starts rucking up everywhere. Always trying to go in, if not the same direction literally, then at least not that way and then that way, but the same left, right or up and down direction. A little bit more to do there. Leave that there. But I am happy to have it a little bit patchy, just because of the orcish nature. They've got some grot to come along with a yard brush. And by yard brush, I mean, a squig, a hairy squig, that they've dunked in some white paint they've found somewhere and slopped it across the side of this ordnance. Don't forget, of course, the grot will be fighting the squig at the same time while he's using the squig as a brush. So it stands to reason you're not going to have imperial level airbrushed paint job. It might just be literally they brush the paint on with a squig. Hair squig. And yes, hair squigs are a thing. I would imagine if Orks paint things, they use hair squigs as brushes. I mean, it would seem to make sense. So I don't mind a little bit of brushiness to it or streakiness or anything like that. Some bit. There will also be weathering on here as well, although it seems weird to have weathering on a bomb because I can't imagine Orks would want a bomb sitting around not used for a long time. It probably wouldn't last very long. I need to get some more paint now. Where are we? A bit more paint on the palette. Now, apologies, I'm not looking at chat too much. Obviously, I am painting today, so I can't be doing quite as much chatting as normal. Apologies if my head... I keep feeling the camera on the top of my head, but I don't know if I'm in shot or not, so... Yeah, that. Is that a blast of the hairdryer? A lot of brush painting it's not something you can really necessarily explain very easily. You can show how it's done. You can do it on camera, but there's a certain degree at point at which it's kind of learned and instinctive at the same time. It's muscle memory. It's how the paint feels under your brush and how that's transmitted through the brush to your fingertips. It's kind of intuitive in a lot of ways. So it's quite hard to explain and show sometimes. Right, so there we go. Covered quite nice. So it's a little bit streaky, but we have got another colour to put on top anyway, so it's not the end of the world. And I like a little bit of streak because it gives it a little bit of found metalwork look. Hairdryer sounds odd, but not blasting my ears when you use it, says Lee. Cool. I'll try not to use it too often. Right, so let's get this second coat or third coat on here. A lot of painting is just instinctive. The painting to get a smooth finish or a smoothish finish. So it looks like I'm painting quite slapdash. I'm not. I'm actually thinking carefully about what I'm doing. It's just I'm so comfortable doing it that I can do it in such a way that it looks like I'm just slapping paint on. But I'm kind of paying attention to what I'm doing. Like I say, I do have the advantage that I can allow for Ork technology a little bit. If this was, say, an Imperial, if this was a missile bomb on the bottom, say an Imperial Guard Valkyrie or something like that, then I probably wouldn't do this. I would probably airbrush it, because that's more likely to be. I mean, it sounds ridiculous to say in the real world, but theoretically that would be mass produced and sprayed on, and not painted on by a grot with a brush squig, a hair squig. So yeah, you want it to look a bit nicer and neater there. When it comes to the old orculations, got a bit of leak on that. Like I keep saying about don't go back on your brushing and don't go over yourself. You can't. I mean, you'll see I keep doing it, but it's only because I know which bits I painted and which bits I can go over again, and how much pressure to put on to not mess the paint up that's underneath. I think that will do for that coat. It doesn't need to be 100% perfect, and like I say, the next layer will cover it up a bit more as well. Brush rinse off. I'll have a quick look at the chat and see what's going on. When I get to painting the checkers, that's when it gets difficult now, because then I need to be close up, but I don't want you to watch the back of my head because that would suck. I'm also going to take my hoodie off because it's a bit warm. A quick look at the chat. Put the lid on my palette just to keep it nice and wet and moist. I'll probably miss a lot of chat, so I do apologise. Pentularity, says Mayhem. Moist willies, says Edward. I don't. Team Inept's in. Paul at Team Inept, waiting for Fox to actually paint something instead of sanding arms. Why, I order. Fox is streaking. Steady, Neris. 48 watching, only 16 thumbs. Come on, share the love, please, says Colin. Yes, give us a little thumbs up. Helps me in my helps my stream go up in the listings a little bit. I've got to go cook some breakfast. Be back shortly, says William. You need to know all the details of the breakfast, William. Fox won't wait for you like Colin did. I can't. Unless he does it now. Butter, yeah. 30, 20, 10, butter. A yard brush equals triggers broom. David Sanders, scale model Muse, looks outside. Hey Muse, it tried to winter again. Did you have Anne Snows? 5 things primed and ready, says Phil East, and now I just need to decide what to paint. All the things. It'll stay, it's got a nice icy base to stick to, says Muse. Yeah, cool. Right. I don't think I missed that much then. All right then. Rallying Frostmere says, hello, just arrived. It's hard to hear much because I'm watching John Wick 2 and playing Teardown while watching the stream, but nice painting. Looks like an Ork bomb. It is indeed an Ork bomb for my Was-bomb Dakajet. All tough. Eon's car has returned. On the bench is 7 intercessors, 2 Hellblasters, Interceptor, and for tea, sausages and chips. Yes. Linda Paul went to Midland, Tennessee. Went to Midland in Texas, so just so I could go inside and eat chilies. Here in New Mexico, restaurants or takeaway only. Where are we? I think Timothy's talking about the army painted paints. Are you mixing them enough and removing the excess medium from the bottle before use? Timothy says, I feel as though it's impossible to mix them enough. This is one thing about some paints. This is one thing I've said about all kinds of paints and primers and things like that. I want to be able to open a paint or a primer or a varnish, open a paint and use it. Get out my wet palette and use it. Maybe add a tiny amount of water. If a paint requires me to drain off excess medium or mix it for half an hour or add flow agents or other things to make it brushable, I'm not going to use that paint. I'm not lazy. It's like buying a car, but you have to sort of, make the engine manually work. You have to do, it's like buying a car, but find you've got to do the Flintstones car thing to get it to work. You'd be like, no, I want it to work for me. So I'm not a big fan of that. If I can't just get out of the pot and brush it on, I'm not interested. Right, we're going to shake this. So we've done the Celestra grey, and as you can see, it's just a nice neutral grey base. It's covered up that red pretty much. There's still some red showing through, but it's done its job as good enough. It doesn't need to be perfect because it's Ork. So it's covered most of that up. That's fine. So now we can go in with the Ulthuan grey. Now this will be effectively our white. And again, remember, it doesn't look like white when you put it next to a white. When you put it next to something that's not white, or you put it on there, it's got nothing around it to compare to, so your brain will say, well, that's clearly white because it's not red. This is the trick. Now, this is a layer paint, and this is transparent. So, exactly the same again. This is where I have to hope I've got enough of these, because I'm running a bit low. I've ordered some more this afternoon. I should have them in a couple of days. I kind of have to hope I've got enough to go on. I've got like 1 million pots of Abaddon Black, but... So let's get this on, shall we? Let's get it on. One other thing I've noticed as well, I sprayed all these. The red is like Vallejo colours. It doesn't stay on very easily. As I've been handling these things, the kit, I've got all the edges, the paint's just rubbed off. It's really delicate. So yeah, I think when I go back to, I don't know if you saw the other day, I did some masking on this, and literally masked off a bit, sprayed, took the masking off, and paint came up with primer as well. So I used Ammo one-shot primer, the white primer, and I don't think I'll be using it again, let's put it that way, because that was not impressive. Luckily it's an Ork vehicle, so I can just make mess and chips. Not impressed with that. Now again, you'll see this is horribly streaky, but that's fine. Going to paint from the edge of the blob, not from the centre. I'm just going to go in and get this covered. Start with one coat. Streaktacular. Now, I don't know if my head is in shot. I'm starting to worry a bit about how I'm going to do the bit where I've got to paint the lines for the black and the delicate bits, because I need to kind of be closer than I am. That might be a bit challenging to do on a stream, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Not touch the bit I'm painting, because here I've got to go back on myself to get this bit, but I don't want to rook up the paint underneath. I'm using quite a thin coat here, so it is very transparent. Now, if you're not using Citadel paint, if you don't have Citadel paints or these specific colours, and you want to paint white, the same rule still basically applies, even if you're airbrushing as well. I mean, I would say in an ideal world where you can airbrush whites, it's a lot less painful than trying to brush whites. But however you decide to do it, the same principle still applies, whether it's, you know, whether you're doing Tamiya paint, well, I wouldn't try brushing Tamiya paints, but whether you're working with Tamiya or Ammo or Vallejo or whatever paints you're using, you need to make sure you're not just going straight in with white, because that's the worst thing you can do. Especially if you've got a black primer or a dark coloured primer, because you're just going to have sadness. Same with yellows and reds. Most paints are transparent, so they'll always, to a certain degree, show or be affected by whatever colour is underneath until you've got enough on there to block out the colour underneath. So wherever you're doing whites, even if you're not using Citadel paints, same principle applies. Start with a neutral primer colour. If you can't, you know, and you can't start with a neutral primer colour, then whichever bit needs to be white, you need to, let's say you've done let's say you have to do a dark coloured primer, like a brown or a black or something. Let's say you have to do that, you've got no choice. Then what you need to do is make sure that before you start putting any light greys or whites on there, you just get a nice neutral colour to block out that primer. So either start with a neutral primer or block out that non-neutral primer with something neutral like a grey, a light grey. If you're airbrushing, you can go for a tan colour. When I did my Eagle Transporter, if you remember, I used a tan colour. When you're airbrushing, you can actually do various colours. You need to be aware of the effect it will have on the white or the light colour you're painting. I'm just going to give this a bit of hairdryer time. Hang on. issue. So if you paint white over a blue grey, say you've got a couple of neutral greys, this one, where is it? Celestial grey is kind of neutral, but you could have a light grey that's got a bit of a blue tinge to it. Right, 1 second while I do the hairdryer. You might have a grey that's got a bit of a blue tinge to it. When you paint white over that, it's going to show that blue tinge through. You'll get a cold white. I need to clear my throat. 1 sec. If you paint your white or light colour over a tan colour or a grey with a warm tone to it, then you'll have a warm white. If you paint your white over a black, brush painting, you'll just be in for a nightmare. If you're airbrushing, you will be able to build up the white enough to block out the black eventually, but it will have a very strong blue tint to it. It'll be very cold. It'll probably look like more like a grey. And you have to also keep in mind what I've said here about how a grey can look like a white when there's no whites around. You need to be aware of that when you're spraying or painting white, because it isn't just once that I've painted a Millennium Falcon and thought it looked like a nice creamy off-white warm, but then when I've put it next to something white, I suddenly find I've painted my Millennium Falcon like a grey colour. Because out of context, a grey can look like white. Only when you put it next to something that is white, or very light coloured, that you start to realise, oh, I've goofed. Keep that in mind. You can use it to advantage. If you want a warm white, you can start with a tan coloured base. If you want a cold white, you can start with a darker base. Done that bit. Have I done that bit or not? Give it a bit of going. There. Okay, let's count. Stop. Side. So it is tricky, and it's not guaranteed at all that you'll get a nice smooth finish. It doesn't always work out, but at least you'll learn through the process. Like I said, this is an orc thing, so if it doesn't look fantastic, it's fine. Once it's got weathering and chipping and everything else on it, it'll just have that orcish aesthetic. When I first started painting this, I was stressing about how will this look, and if I do this coat here, and it's like, you know what, it's orc. If it goes a bit wrong, it's orc. Don't worry about it. And eventually my brain went, you know what, you're right, I get it now. So what I can do here, if I don't worry too much, then I can use the grey of the celestial grey underneath to add a little bit of pre-shading effects, sort of, a little bit. I'm not going quite up towards the edge with the white, with the Ulthuan grey. Forget which is which now. So it kind of looks like in some areas it's a little bit darker. Kind of. You kind of get away with it. Now it looks messy now, but once we've got checkers and things on it, you cover a lot of that up, so it's fine. What's chat doing? Oh, big bombage, says Fester. Yeah. Get to bed, Chunk. Who is Chunk? Oh, Chuck. Who's Chuck or Chunk? Is that Southwest Modeler? Am I missing an in-joke there? Good to hear it, Aeon's car. I won't say out loud because obviously I don't want my stream to get pinged, but good to hear it. Glad to hear it that you're okay. Draw a burpis on it, says Team Inept. No. Boobs, says Team Inept. Welcome, Team Inept. I knew you'd do that. Oh, burpularity. Waiting for Fox to actually paint something. Oh, I've done that one. Hang on, have I gone all the way up the... Wow, this chat's broken. It's kind of got comments from 2 hours ago, like halfway in. I don't know. Hairdresser. Oh, we've done that one. Okay, yeah, chat does seem to be a bit broken. Paul Di Tommaso says, morning, everyone. Morning, Paul. I assume chat is up to date, but it's impossible to know because chat's been broken again today. Hang on, I'm getting texted. Cool, thanks, Dad. Painting over black for white, it's best to go from a dark colours to mid-tone and then lighter colour, says Jan's car, but just spray a white or light grey primer. Yep. I mean, ideally, avoid spraying whites or light colours over blacks at all if you can. Or just block out them with something else first, like this, for example. Get the dust off it. This was all prime black, but of course you've got a white stripe there. But the whole thing got painted with the Death Guard green first over the black. So that blocked out a lot of the black, and the green was easier to work over. But before I painted the white on there, I went in with the Celestra and the Ulthuan Grey like I am now, just to get that white finish. So, it's always about blocking out the darks and working you up to the light tones if you can. Chat is janky as usual. Am I the only one who uses Viejo Gaming rather than black paints? I found it really good for coverage of the flow. No, I've not. I've got some Viejo Gamings, but I've also got actual dust. India ink, which I used on my Sazabi. I do use it from time to time. But with this, with the checker patterns, because I'm going to make wiggly lines that I need to clean up, I don't want to go for something too bold and opaque because I won't be able to then cover it up with the whites. So you'll see why in a bit. Right, hello, more text from people. Thanks, Colin. Colin sends me a sexy. Hello, sexy. Hello, darling. Right, so let's give this another coat. Now, because I've got 2 coats on there, I can start the whole thing of going in with a thinner coat than I normally would, because it's not about blocking out now. Let's get some water on that, not too much. And we'll start doing this. And this now is just about going for a thinner coat than we had before, just to block out some of the little streaks and gaps and make it look a bit brighter, a bit more solid. Being very careful not to... Hello, I'm going to have to turn that off in a minute, aren't I? That's going to be Paul, I bet. In a minute. He's going to say, like, I bet he sent me a text saying boopis or something. We shall find out which bit I can handle. Handle your bits. Slightly thinner coat, just thinned a little bit more than the other 2. Just to let it flow and be smooth. Doing some of the little streaks. Like I said, if we have some streaks left over, that's absolutely fine. I want it to look like it's been painted with whitewash, basically. So there's going to be some rough edges. Going to be some jank to it. And that's why I'm also keeping it in this direction, because then it looks like somebody's painted it like that. They've just got a big pot of whitewash, which I assume is probably something they make from squigs somehow. But it also it's kept a bit of darkness around the edges, around those 2 panel lines there. That's quite good. It looks, if you look at it in real life on telly now, you're looking at it. It looks all right. I look at it close up, I can see little brush marks, but that's probably going to be all right, because once it's got like the checkers on there, and you've got some shading on there, and I've covered up the whites a bit anyway, it's going to be fine. So that's going to do us for just the initial coat to get the checkers on. So we'll do the next one. Again, if this was Imperial Guard, I'd probably spend a lot more time trying to build this coat up, or I'd do it with airbrushes, because I'd want it to be nice. I want it to look like somebody's got a spray gun and a checker pattern and sprayed black and white, where it's an orc. Like I say, they've just grabbed some git and said, oh, you paint that there, paint this black and white checkers, because, you know, orcs are net the thing. And they probably threatened him to bash him if he didn't, so he's not really doing it because he wants to do it. I will check my text message in a minute. Don't you worry. I've got fiddly painting coming up, so I will be turning my phone off for that, of course. Yeah, paint checkers on that, you. Well, bash your head in. Not that the orc wouldn't bash a grot anyway. And if the grot did a good job, the orc would be like, you did a great job, I'll only bash you a bit. Also, if I keep it a little bit streaky here as well, it also reduces the amount of weathering I need to do later on. See, because it's already got some streak built into it. That's the wrong colour, you fool. Got some of the Celestial grey on there. That wrong. Just light touch. I'm not pushing the brush down hard for this coat. Light touch, barely hitting the plastic with the brush, to be perfectly honest. Now, it doesn't go very nicely into these recesses. They're a bit messy in those panel lines, but we're going to get some shade in there. Fine. And keep in mind, this bit here is, you're not going to see that because it's up against the wing. So we'll put that there. Give the brush a good clean. I'll check my text messages. Guys, thank you. Pain in the butt you guys can be. Let's have a look what we got. Mike Mountain, we are paying attention, you know, hugs. Mike Mountain, check your messages, humph. There you go, I check my messages now. Thank you, Dad. Swig of coffee. Nom. Honestly, you give me like 3 seconds to check my messages while I'm in the middle of painting. Give me a chance. It's a tubes bug. I'm not even getting the pin message, says Philly. Yeah, the YouTube's been broken for the last couple of weeks. If I dismiss the pin message, my chat stops. No, you don't want to do that. You don't want to dismiss the pin message because that's me flogging my wares anyway. Frankie Goes to Hobbywood is in. Welcome, Frankie. Hey, says hello, Fox and everyone. Welcome, welcome, my friend. Why YouTube is not chat working? It's fine on mine, but janky on the laptop. Yeah. If you guys are having problems with chat on mobile devices, switch them off totally, then turn back on. Worked for me, says Sprugloo. Hey, Sprugloo. Yeah, I don't tend to. I mean, I've got chat here on my iPad, but it's in Chrome. It's not in a mobile version of the YouTube. So I reckon we can maybe get one more coat of. Do we? Do we? Or do we go straight for the checkers now? I think one more very light coat of the white of the all through and grey. I'm going to get the hairdryer again. 1 second, folks and ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, I'll be able to get at least one done, and it'll all make sense by the end of it. Right. Worried about how I'm going to do it with the camera there. So, we'll do one more coat of this. And we'll do a very thin coat of this, just a brightness coat. Ooh, burpitaculons. Very burpy today. I don't know why. I do apologise. Apologies. Touch of water, but just a tiny amount. It's just really to even it out now. You don't need to go this far, this many coats. It's just I'm quite a stickler sometimes. Stickler. I'm a stickler, but my name's not Nicola. I don't know what that means. I don't know why that just came out of my brain, but it did. Not much I can do about it now. It's far too late. That'll do. On this one. Nicola, the stickler. Stickle bricks. Yay. Of course, this is much easier when you're not dropping things. This is much easier when you're working on a simple flat surface and not on a curved surface, curved like this. Have you seen those orcs from Markarth? They paint their checkers on curved surfaces. Curved surfaces. They're reforming the Dawn Guard out here. Some kind of vampire hunters. Skyrim references. Makes me laugh when I play Skyrim. In one playthrough where I was a werewolf, and every now and then, like a guard or a shopkeeper will be like, "Is that fur coming out of your ears?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm a Khajiit. What would you expect? Of course, it's fur." I'm quite tickled by the fact that they're asking that question of a cat dude. Right, that's going to do for that coat anyway. I think it's as far as we want to go with that. Now, like I said, we want it to be black and white checkers, but that is not white. But it's going to do absolutely fine as white. Because when we put the black on, we've got the potential for highlights. If you're airbrushing, you've got the option of going straight for, the whites and the blacks. But when you're brushing, you've got to be realistic, and you've got to allow yourself somewhere for highlights. I'm going to give this a blast of the hairdryer. 1 second. Alrighty, right. It's time for the delicate lines. So we can dispense with the big fat brush. I can go into my pile of brushes for cleaning. Now it's time to get out the big boys. I don't know what that means. I'm going to go in with my 3/0 broken toed brush, which is the size of a rice. Oh, handy hit tip, by the way, don't get paint onto your palette with your nice brushes. Have a crappy old brush that's entire purpose, shaking paint, is to get paint on the palette. I'm going to go for Abaddon Black, Abba's Greatest Hits. I'm going to have it way over there on the palette. I'm going to go there. So here's what we're going to do, and this might not work given where the camera is. What I want to do now is do a simple checkered pattern. Now keep in mind, again, like we said before, it's painted by a grot with a hair squig, in my imagination, so it's not going to be the most perfect thing ever. And it's probably not going to be like a nice even number of squares. It might be that the last row of squares goes off the edge, and there you go, end up with weirdness like that, but that's fine. What I want to do is simply start blocking those in. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to make them quite big, because if I make big checkers, it's less work, which is always a winner. I'm going to start here. I'm just going to paint a straight line. Now, it may not end up being perfect. I might mess it up. It might not come out perfectly straight. We can tidy up any wiggliness and wobbliness later. We just need to block these things in for the moment. So with this, I'm just getting it down. Doesn't matter if it's wiggly or if it's not quite vertical or horizontal. I'm not bothered right at the minute. That's all things we can clean up. I just need to roughly block in the lines so I know where I'm painting. It can sometimes go like this if it's helpful, if it helps you at all. There we go, that's one line. Just, it's a good way to start, that's all. So now we'll do another line. I've got the paint a little thinner than normal. The reason I like these broken toed brushes is even the smallest one has quite a nice big fat reservoir of paint. So I'm going to put this one here. I'm going to make these big checks purely out of not laziness, but I'm doing it on camera on a live stream. It's not that easy. So if I did little tiny checkers, I'd be here for weeks. And checkers is one of those things that it can be exceptionally satisfying when it works. It can be frustrating to do, but satisfying once you get the end result. Okay, so we've got another line there. Now theoretically the next line will be about here, so we're going to paint that in. Now it means that one of the checkers runs off the edge, but that's fine. Painted by a grot with a hair squig. I only say that so many times. But this one will go here. And this is why the grot might get bashed by the orc, you see, because he's a bit rubbish at painting checkers on things. That's not quite straight, so we'll run that round. I've got the rivets to work against here, so it's a bit easier. But this will look, when you're doing checkers, this will look like absolute ass magnets. Don't panic. This bit always looks like garbage when you do it. we now can start planning where this needs to go. And the reason I've got the paint thinned a little more than normal and using thin lines is so that when I start going backwards and forwards with the black and the white, if I do massive, thick, bold black lines, and I need to go back and touch one in with a bit of white, of course, it's harder to cover that up with the white. So, chat on Foxy's screen just duplicated the chat. Oh, yeah? Let me refresh the chat. Hang on. It might not work. Oh, burpage. Okay. I've restarted the chat, see if that fixes it. You should be good going to go hairy stick all the way, no airbrushing, says Felice. What we're talking about. Thanks, because I'm starting on the Chaos Raptors. No. Yeah, chat's clearly being weird for some reason. Oh well, never mind. So, there we go. We got the verticals. Let's do the horizontals. You'll see how decidedly simple this is. If you watch people doing guides on how to, like if you watch like the Warhammer TV stuff, they kind of give you half the information sometimes. That's not quite horizontal, so we need to adjust that. That's better. There we go. It always looks like they do it right the first time every time, but they don't, of course. Happens to be in the middle of that. That's cool. We like that. You like that? 1, 2, 3. Okay, it's about there. It's just doing it by eye. By eye. 1, 2, 3 and a bit. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's about there, isn't it? So do that there ish. Again, you're just winging it, really. I'll go around and do these. They'll probably all end up being the wrong shape and size, but that's fine. But it always does look terrible when you're at this point. Don't panic. It's got to be kind of in the middle now, isn't it? Do it that way. Do it that way. Be better. Do find whichever way is easier for you. Some people prefer to paint like this with vertical movements. They find it easier to get a straight line. I sometimes prefer horizontal. That looks like absolute bish. Don't panic. Absolute bish. This is where the magic starts. Right, swig of coffee. Probably shouldn't be drinking coffee when I'm trying to do delicate things. Yum, 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 yum. Sometimes what you can do, if you're not that confident about getting them all nicely lined out, if you do them at an angle, like that way, so it's like this way rather than vertical and horizontal, it can help break up the brain's way of seeing it so it doesn't look, because it can't compare it to all the other verticals and horizontals. I did think about doing that, but I forgot about that until just now, this moment, so yes. What we can do now is we can take a slightly bigger brush, just on this one. Now the trick with checkers that I've found, the way I do them, is to build up the colour. Don't block it all in straight away, because you want to get a feel for how it's laid out. So what I'm going to do first is go with some thinned black and just slowly start to build up my checker pattern. Almost like a wash at this point. In fact, it's almost too thin. Just so I can loosely see which panel is which. And so I can start to make adjustments. Because if I need to do any adjustments now, I'm only trying to cover up a dark grey patch with some of the colour, not black patch. That can go there. That one goes there. Paintable that bit, but that would be there. This one would be there. At this point, it's almost like painting in watercolours. You're just blocking in the rough colours very lightly. so they're easy to clean up. All about back and forth. This is the way I find. I mean, this may not be the best way to do it, but this is the easiest way I've found to do it. And it'd be really frustrating if YouTube messes it all up and everybody's struggling to watch. The one time I try and live stream checker patterns. That will be quite frustrating. So that's going to be there. So you can see there we've got like the black square here, but I can see they've got the little black line there where I mispainted it. That'll get covered up. It's all about, it's easier to see where you've gone wrong when you've got rough blocking of the black and white colours. You can start to see, well, this line is too thin, or this one is too thick, or this one's a bit wonky. You don't really see that as when it's a simple line pattern. But it is easier on a flat surface, I'll give you that for now. And a bit here. But if you're not used to doing black and white check, any kind of checkers, obviously black and white, if you're not used to doing checker patterns, do big ones. Less daunting to do big ones. Try and do little ones. It can be a bit more challenging. You've got more lines that you need to get horizontal or vertical or at 90 degrees to each other. If you do big ones, it's less things you can mess up. See here, I've got a problem here. I've gone wrong somewhere. Because now I've got that one needs to be black, but that one's black. I've got the wrong number of things. But it'll be fine. It's going to be, that's the bit you're not really going to see anyway, so I don't really know how to get around that. Yeah, 1, 2, the 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1. Yeah, that doesn't really work, does it? Gone a bit wrong, Mum. Never mind. End of the world. We'll come up with some way of fixing that somehow. So now I can get the idea of what it's going to look like. Just roughly. See there, that's dark. Dark. Just get a rough idea of what it actually looks like. That looks pretty good. I think it all looks fairly straight. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that when you do eventually go and block in all the blacks and whites and you get them all done and dusted, if there are any bits where it's not quite 100% vertical or horizontal, first of all, you can do chipping to cover things up. Don't be afraid to put chipping on it if you need to. But also, once you put a wash and stuff and you paint these other metallic parts, it will hide that. So, more or less, that's not looking too bad. So what I can do now is I can block in the blacks. We'll start by blocking the blacks first. Maybe go for a slightly smaller brush. In fact, no, we'll do the blocking. Come back. We shall. We'll tidy up the bits that we definitely know are white first. So we're going to go back in with our Ulthuan Grey. Remember we started with Celestra Grey. I'm going to go in the Ulthuan Grey again, come back to that. And what we can do now is start to just carefully cover up any goofs. Now, it's going to take a bit of effort because remember it's a transparent colour. Not going to cover it up straight away, but it doesn't matter too much. You can go a little bit thicker than normal here. If you need to, you can go back in with the Celestra Grey first and then do the Ulthuan. Might be an idea. Sometimes you can just cover up the light black colour quite easily. Or just quickly tidy this up. Bearing in mind, of course, I'm tidying this up now. When I apply the black paint, I might make a mess of that edge and have to go back again. We'll very quickly just do a little bit of rough tidy up. Just roughly. That's got a bit of a kink to it, so I can straighten that out. That's a bit thick. Widen that. Oops. Bit more wideness. You'll have bits where, for example, it looks good, but you've got the thick line which makes one square wider than it should be, and so on. You just need to balance them all out a little bit. It's hard to explain, but you'll figure it out. Like here. I'm not going to get perfect with it because I'll probably have to go back and forth anyway. At the moment, I just need to get rid of that excess there. And you see why I wasn't too worried about the white, or rather the Ulthuan grey, being perfectly opaque and uniform, is because I'll probably end up repainting these white squares as we go along anyway. So they'll get even more opaque as we go back and forth. I don't mind the fact that they're not 100% perfect right now. Tidy them up. Yeah. Welcome. The joy and sometimes tedium of checkers. I hope this is all in focus and actually on screen and stuff, by the way. I hope it's not just all out of shot, because that would suck big time. Just a little bit of tidy up. Be straight there. Again, there's going to be back and forth. You kind of end up repainting all the white squares as you go along to tidy them up and neaten them up. So you just have to look for bits where there's obvious blebbage there and there. Just rough. There. Now this bit here where we had ended up with two lines, what I'll do is bite the bullet. It happens sometimes. Is bite the bullet. Remember, it's a grot with a squig. I'll just paint over that line. And being the grot, I've buggered it up. I don't want to get bashed by the orc. I'll hide my mistake. So a couple of coats of this once we redo those squares, and that line should fade away quite nicely. Again, it's not perfect now. It'll go. Tidy this bit up here. Real seat of the pants roughness. But it's the kind of thing that until it's finished, it looks terrible. They always will. Especially on something big like this. If you're doing it on like a small, like a bit of clothing or a scarf or a piece of something or other, some small, like a weapon, it can look quite good. Because something big like this, yeah, it's a bit tricky. Okay, so just tidying up, because we'll fill these blacks in a bit. That needs a bit more. You can block out the dark colour with the grey, the Ulthuan grey. It does work, but because you do it on such a small space, it's not the end of the world. I hope my head's not in shot, by the way. Not whereas if you did it on like the whole, covering the whole bomb thing, you're making a mess because you've got to use a lot of paint. On little tiny details like this, you can actually get away with a bit of thickness because it's a small area. Do another coat on here just to cover that up. That will get repainted anyway. I'll take a few goes on that bit. Blend it away. A lot of it isn't, like I say, a lot of it's hard to explain. A lot of it is instinctive, and it's not something I can just say, you need to do this or that, because it's a lot of it is down to the feel of the paint. It really is a case sometimes of the feel of the paint. Right, so I'm going to hairdryer that very, very quickly, just to soften that off a bit. Can't believe I made that goof in the middle there. It happens sometimes. Right, so now it's time for the black again. Let's crack on. Let's crack on with the black on. I'll have a quick look at the chat first. I really appreciate this. Not looking forward to doing it on the cloth though. Trust me, on something that big, on a loincloth or something like that, it's an absolute doddle because you've got mostly a flat surface and you're like this. and you're not having to do it with the camera. When you can actually just sit there doing it, and you can sit there and you can hold it your own way with your hands braced, it's actually fun. It's actually fun. I kind of like the diluted black. Looks very orkish, says Lee. Yeah, it's got a bit of tank girl going on, but I need to not have the grid. I think we'll see how it goes. Get some water, not that much water. The one pain with Abaddon black is it does tend to dry out on your wet palette dead quick, really quick, and everything. Right, shut up, Fox. Now this will take a couple of coats because you want to. The trick with the black is you want to apply it in thin watery coats, because you've all heard us say before, you don't just want to paint blacks as black because you can't go darker than black. Same way you don't want to paint white because you can't go darker than lighter than white. So if you go in with thin watery coats, you can build it up slowly so that you have the option of going all the way to black if you want, but you can also stop and have it dark grey. In some places have different patchiness and shadiness to it. It's not all just solid black. It also means that you're going to reduce the amount of brush marks, because this is the point at which we're doing lots of brush over painting here and painting over layers and stuff. This is the point at which it starts to get very brush marky if you're not working with thinned paints. So you need to really start being careful. Now you see I've gone over the edge there a little bit. We can clean that up. Just about trying to get the edges straight. And what you will find is you get that the edge of one box is lower than the edge of the other box next to it. That's where we start cleaning up later on. So don't worry about that. This is all the back and forth you'll never get told about once you've got the initial black and white down. Duncan and that lot and other people that teach you these things, they'll just make it look like you paint the white, then you paint the black, and done. There you go, nice and neat. No. Tidy up, there's fiddling, there's faff. All the stuff you're not normally told about. They could do this with inks. Yeah, I can see why that would be a good thing. Inks are nice and opaque. I like inks. They brush really nicely. The difficulty is, though, as you'll see, I'll go over the black with the white back and forth. I don't want to really say white because it's not white, but it's harder to say Celestra grey or whatever. But they are very opaque, so you'd have a harder time covering up any misbrushings in the black or in the ink with the white. Now you see here how you've got the bottom of this square here lines up with the top of that one. I'll just straighten it out. It lines up nicely there, but then this square is too far down. This is the kind of tidy up you need to do. Make things nice, and I've gone a bit wobbly there, so I'll have to go back with the white and then tidy that up in a minute. This is now the back and forth that you have to endure in doing, I mean, any kind of freehand, not just checkers, any kind of freehand. It involves all this. People make it look dead easy on videos, but it is easy. It's not hard. It's just a little bit time intensive and labour intensive and a little bit tedious. There's a bit of circle thing there, but I'm going to paint that silver or bronze later anyway, so I'm not bothered about that now. I'll just take that up. It's not hard. It's challenging to do on camera, I'll give you that. If you were doing, let's say, if I was doing some kind of Borderlands paint scheme, you know, with the sort of the comic book style artwork, this would be great to do the blacks as washes like this, because then you really would get that kind of patchy black look and it would be perfect. Don't be too keen to go in with your solid colours straight away when it comes to things like this. Part of the skill of confidently brush painting is just understanding how your paints work. Understanding when you want to go in full bore with heavy paints, and sometimes when you want to use thinner glazed washes or just thinner coats to build up. understanding what that means. I'm going to paint this bit here black, even though I'm going to paint it bronze or gold later on. This is now, I'm quite surprised I'm doing this quite easily on the live stream, because this is really hard to do in real life, never mind whilst streaming. Because I've painted thinly, of course, I can go back and forth. That's the bit where the boss knob can smash his painted face into the metal to sign the bomb. I like that. I really... where are we? Let's have a look. GW should sell a full sheet of checker decal so you can just cut to fit what you need, says Phil East. They probably do, but it'd be £1 per checker square. I'll be honest. Doing this as a decal with all these raised details will probably be a massive pain in the arse. It's actually easier and less hassle brush paint it. Maybe not less hassle, but you to get around all these, you'd be putting the decal on, you'd be having to cut it and trim it and then fuss with it for ages because it's got all the bubbles because of all the raised. If it was a smooth surface, absolutely, but because it's covered in details and rivets and bits and bobs, actually easier just to paint it. Again, especially with Orks, because it's, you know, like I said, grew up with the squig. Whenever you're painting Orc stuff, just have that image in the back of your mind. Some poor grot with a hair squig under threat of having his head bashed in by the boss, by a knob. If you don't paint it right, if you don't paint it good, I'll bash your head in. Or maybe he's offered the grot some teeth. Then again, he'll just bash the grot anyway, so he wouldn't offer him teeth. And this is what it's all about now. Going back and forth. And I reckon we might get one of these finished today. And it's the kind of thing that you can sit and do it for a while, but I wouldn't recommend you sit and do this for hour after hour after hour, because you will get bored. There's a certain level of tedium with this that you have to accept. You need to just do it for a bit and then step away. Especially when it's not on camera. There's a certain point at which you have to say, right, I've done enough now. I'll do the rest tomorrow, or I'll go and do something else for a bit. So this goes down the little panel line. Panel line. The one thing you need to do with Orc as well, with Orc stuff, is you have to get used to the fact that your beautiful, beautiful paint job, gouged into the plastic with my clippers there, your beautiful, beautiful paint job, when you've done your first few base coats with airbrush, will not stay that way. It will get mangled up with your rust and your weathering and your Orkness. And it can be quite a hard thing to accept. Like when I first, see I've splodged there, we'll cover that. When I first put the red coat down on this, it looked beautiful. I'm like, oh, I want to keep the whole thing looking like that. Like, no, it's Orc. We've got to cover it in crap and chips and all kinds of nonsense. Oh, yeah. And it can be hard to do that. Because the model always looks perfect until you mess it up. And then you're like, oh, it looks so good until then. So I know while I'm handling this bomb now, I'm rubbing paint off all over the place. Because they're acrylics and they're a bit rubbish. I could have varnished it first, but I didn't want to. So, but then that's where I can start doing like paint chips and stuff. And rust. Things like that, you'll see. That needs to be black there. Too thin. Now, it is one of those things that, like we were saying, looks really good with the kind of watercolour effect. Looks very orcish. It does, but it's like I've said before, it's always a trade-off between what looks good and makes sense, but then what looks wrong or when somebody else sees it, it looks like you've not done a good job. Remember how I said about the rust streak on the back of a truck that I saw once that was like a 45-degree angle, which made no sense at all, unless you imagine that the truck's been parked up on the curb at a 45-degree angle and the streak's gone down the side. In the real world, it makes perfect sense. But to someone looking at your model with a 45-degree rust streak when everything else is 90 degrees and vertical, they won't have that backstory or knowledge. And they'll be like, you made a right mess of that, didn't you? So you've got to play that game of, you want to have a backstory to all the weathering and stuff you paint on there, but you have to make sure it's not something that's so arcane that people aren't going to know that, and that it just looks like bad painting at that point. So although it could be quite cool to have the watercolory effect, people just expect nice black and white checks, basically. A bit wonky on the edges here, but that's fine, we can tidy it up. Quite tricky because of all the rivets. Riveting, you say, riveting. I don't need to place, I don't need to paint that little knobbing thing, but I'll give it a coat anyway. Gonna get a different colour. Yeah, so no real news to talk of. Been busy working on this. Might be another week or so. I've got lots to do. I've not even finished all the base colours yet. It took me a whole day just to paint the pilot and the gunner. Just more getting into the, because I've not painted Orks before, the figures, so. Right. A bit too far there, so we'll need to tidy it up with the white. So these look rough around the edges, that's fine. It's all about the back and forth. What I need to do now is give that a bit the old hairdryer very quickly. Hairdryer, hot hairdryer action. I'm talking just to keep the microphone active. Oh, hello. So right now it's got that kind of Borderlands look to it. But I want to get rid of the grid lines that I painted on there. It'd be nice solid lines. I'm going to sort my rug out. Now, it's gone over it, so we're going to go over it again with the black. And we're just filling in. It's just colouring in at this point. That's all we're doing is colouring in. I don't need to worry too much about going right to the edge. I've not got the paint quite as thin this time. We're just still blocking in. A little mishaps. What you'll find is when you do some weathering on this in a bit, if we get that far today, when I do like an Agrax Surshade wash, you'll be surprised. It kind of miraculously blends everything together. It makes it look fantastic. It softens the... It kind of doesn't, but it does. It kind of softens the black to white transition, which is weird on a grid pattern. That's not actually a blend. But it does in a way. Softens it all out and makes it all look more, I don't know, contiguous. I like that word, contiguous. Contiguous. I'm not too fussed about that bit because that bit's going to be, you can't really see that when it's up on the wing. These bits you can see. We're just blocking this in. A little bit thin, but not too thin. But this is where good brushes come in. I do apologise, but I'm not doing a lot of chatting today. But this is where good brushes come in, and one of the reasons I like these broken toed ones, they do keep a fine point, but they also have a good reservoir bulb of the bristles. Like the artificer brushes from Games Workshop, they can do a nice point, but they don't hold a lot of paint. You're refilling them all the time, whereas these, they can kind of hold a nicely amount of paint, which is quite nice. They do hold the tip a bit better anyway. Right, that looks about right. About right. It might be somewhere it's like not quite square, one side's a bit wonky, but we can go in and fix those shortly. Get the blacks blacked in first. Build them up slowly, that's the trick. You can see all this by the way. I hope you're actually able to watch this today. But Adam, as to painting them on your orcs, it's not a hard process. It's not tricky at all, and especially when you do the weathering. If it's like if you're painting the loincloths and flags and like shoulder pauldrons on your orcs, on your knobs and your mega knobs, there's always the joy of chipping. Because even I'm not going to get perfectly straight lines here. But that's where things like, you've got a line that's particularly egregious or it's not quite straight, just put a great big paint chip over it. Nobody will ever know. That's the beauty of Daz. Or rust or whatever. Put a big ding in the armour piece, whatever you're actually doing. Just have fun with it. It is a lot easier when you're doing little tiny checkers, not big great honking ones like these. Right. Weird, isn't it, doing this painting? And I'm talking non-stop, but I'm not actually really mentioning to anything. I feel bad that I'm not actually engaging you in conversation, two-way conversation, but I'm kind of enjoying this. I would practice first before you paint on the actual model in anger. But it's just, you do need a wet palette to make your life easier to do this. Because painting with Abaddon black is tricky at the best of times. Assuming you're using Abaddon black. Of course you might not be. Could be using something else. I don't know, do I? I assume there's probably a breed of squig that produces different coloured fluids that the Orks use as paint, I would assume. I'd guess, I don't know. Probably has a squig in there somewhere. But I do find building up the paint with it thinned to almost ink consistency does make life a little bit easier. See, what I'm doing here now is just going into the middle of all these squares, not worrying about the edges so much, and just blocking in that colour. It's thinned a little bit more, just to block in. We'll go and do edge patrol in a minute. Edge patrol, tone patrol, my favourite. Oh, I can't play Destiny 2 anymore because my favourite weapon is the tone patrol scout rifle. But they've sunset it, so it doesn't. You can't level it up past, I think, 1060 power, which is rubbish. They're kind of forcing you to use the weapons, but I don't want to use the weapon. And I hate them for it. Way up to. And my plan is when I do it on the troops, I'll do them a few at a time. Yeah, when you do it on figures, or you've got multiple instances of these checkers to do, just do one, and then take a break, and then do the next one. Because it's not hard, but it can be. You're concentrating, so just take your time, basically. Do one at a time. My Orks are yellow, so I can just copy JCB Vehicles Weathering, says Phillies. Yellow is the best colour for weathering, because rust. I can't put much rust on this, because a red rust chip over like a red brown rust chip on a red vehicle doesn't really stand out. It just looks like black. Fox sounds like he's got his head down the toilet when he has the hairdryer going. Flashbacks to school. Right, let me do another blast of the hairdryer. Speaking of which, 1 second, I'm just going to put my head down the toilet again. All right, I'll give you my lunch money. So what's next? Next is Tone Patrol or Cleanup Patrol. I don't know why I said Tone Patrol. Tone Patrol now. Next is Cleanup Duty. It's the back and forth, and this is the fourth bit. We've done the fourth. Sorry, this is the back bit. Now it's time to go back in with the Ulthuan Grey, not Celestra Grey. Tidy up some of these edges, and we're going to block out the white squares a bit more. What we're doing is basically we've got it thinned again as we did before. We're just building up. I'll call it white for the sake of simplicity. We're blocking out the white again, and we're just building it up in the squares, cleaning up any little blebs of the black, straightening some edges, flattening the curves. Flattening the hills, straightening the curves. Good old boys. And we'll also paint inside the squares as well, the centre, just to block them out even more. This is why I wasn't so worried if they weren't perfectly opaque at the start, because it's not the end of the world. I don't know if you can see the wet palette. The trick here, as before, is to see, I've got to do a bit more black there because it's got a bit too much white. It's just to build up white. Focus on your nice straight edges. Just forgotten where I was. Focus on your nice straight edges and start building them up. So I need to, this black is too tall now, so I need to start pulling that down like that. Now at first you're going to do... Awesome. Get off! At first you're going to see some of the black coming through the white. Then you go with more. Again, apologies if all you see is the top of my head. I get back heat. And I can't really explain to you how much to thin the paint to do this step. It's not so thin that it's like the black when it was an inky wash. It's not neat. It's hard to explain. It's thick enough that it has a certain small amount of opacity to it, but doesn't create a big brush mark. And I'm always going in the same direction. If you see through all of this, as much as I can, I'm going that way, not that way. Although right now I'm about to do that, but I'm doing this line here. Now you might not cover up that black 100% with the white. That's fine. Keep in mind, keep in reserve the fact you've got a bit of freedom from the shades will hide a lot of that. So you've got some freedom there to get out of the way to not get it perfect. This here, what we need to do, this square here sticks out. This square, this black square, sticks too far down that way. You can see here, this square stops here, that one there, and then this one sticks down too far, so we need to go in with the white very carefully. Not building that back. Now I probably will go too far with the white. I will have to go back with the black in a bit. That's fine. And what I tend to do is I use the pressure on the brush. Get the brush on the surface and push it down a little bit, and as you push it down it'll go flat. And as it goes flat, it gives you a nice straight edge or a straighter edge. I want to do this way, but quite tricky for this particular line. I've got to try and get it straight. Do it whatever way is comfortable for you to get the easiest way possible to do a straight line. So I've got a straight line there, but I've gone too far into that black one, so I've added that up in a bit. This is the back and forth. This is the secret sauce that you don't often get shown. This is the trick. You watch people doing this on tutorial videos, 99% of the time it looks like they paint the white and then the black, and then they might say a little bit of tidy up, and the most they might say is there's a little bit of tidy up. They don't show this because when you're doing like a 20-minute or half-hour tutorial, you can't show everything. You can't show every single step. Not possible. You have to cut some corners. Pardon the pun. And that's fine. That's reasonable and acceptable. But it is frustrating when people don't realise there are these little fiddly backwards and forward steps, and they think in their mind that they should be able to do this in 2 or 3 steps and they have a perfect, you know, checker pattern, for example, and they don't. And then they get frustrated and disheartened. Not that they're doing it wrong, it's just that they've not been shown all the steps completely. And the trick comes in. Part of it is down to your brushes. Oh, burpilons. Can make this one a bit bigger. A lot of it is use a wet palette. Don't paint the red bits with white. Where there's a paint chip later on. Use your wet palette and get some decent brushes. If you're in the UK, I cannot recommend these broken toe brushes enough. I really love them. Really do. Now, if you see, I've made a nice straight edge there, but I've gone into that black square, but that's fine. We'll tidy that up. There's always back and forth. There's always going to be backwards and forwards the way you have to go. But that there is fine. Don't get too finicky on them because they're not going to be 100% perfect. There's going to be some wibbly wobblies, but again, the shades will hide a lot of that. It's now just a case of you've got to work. I'm going to go row by row. It's quite tedious, but you get there in the end. I work my way along. Get these whites cleaned up. And then no doubt once I've done that, I'll have to go back and clean up the blacks. That bit I've just goofed there. So that one, but never mind. Because it's a small pattern, you're not going to get too many brush marks. It's not too egregious. Not going to be the, you know, a ultra smooth surface you're going to end up with. But it'll be all right. Apologies, this isn't my most two-way conversational stream ever. How are we on? Up to 5 o'clock. Okay. I don't think we'll get this finished today, but right, I've actually lost track of where I'm up to now. It's the downside. You do get confused and lost. And that's normal for me anyway. Need to clean up that black box. Clean up there. And there's no way you're going to get this spot on perfect, nice and neat and geometrical straight away. You're going to take some back and forth. You're going to have to fettle and fiddle and fuss to get this looking nice and neat. It's the part they never show you. That's the magic secret sauce. I messed up that black square there doing that bit, but that's fine. I'll go back and tidy that in a minute. It is really easy to lose track of where you're up to and which bit you've done and which bit you haven't done. That can be quite frustrating. Yeah. You get there in the end. It can be a slow and tedious process. But it's worth it. White on that top bit. Whoops, lady. I think I'm going over the bits I've done before now. It's quite easy to lose track. I appear to be losing track. Quite tricky to do this where there's rivets involved. Rivet. Rivet. I shall pause and have a look at chat in a moment. But yeah, I mean, it could take me a whole day just to do these 2 bombs. And I've got both wings to do as well, yet with a similar kind of effect. So, not a fast process. Don't expect to have it done in an hour. And if you've got, like, for example, oh, I don't know, a Start Collecting Orks box set, yeah, set yourself a few days aside. I mean, luckily on that, you've only got things like loincloths and pauldrons and things to paint, so you can do small little things on there. Bad. Just set yourself time aside. Get a whole load of good podcasts on the go. Just back and forth. I really have lost track of which bit I've done now, which bits I haven't. Sometimes it's good to squint your eyes and half close your eyes a bit to get a sort of slightly out of focus view of what you're doing. That helps you see very quickly whether a square is off square or not square or the wrong shape or something like that. Good way to quickly see if everything looks good or off. And just fettle for as long as you want. There's one little line you can't quite get exactly squared. Don't worry about it. That's where you'll put a big fat paint chip. Or if it's an option, stick a decal over that bit. And depending on what you're painting, maybe decals are an option. Do that. Also, the bigger your checks, the less of the back and forth is needed, because if you had little tiny checks, you'd be doing lots and lots of back and forth. Little tiny, big fat ones like these, you've only got a few of them to sort out. Tidied up. A bit more. Go too far with the white, then I just come back with the black. That one I think is actually not enough white. Straight up. I'll have like a few corners here and there to clean up as I go back and forth. And with that, oops, daisy. That one there is a bit off. Almost like I'm marking it out with the white and then painting it in. It takes a while. You get the hang of it. Ooh, stiff neck now. Let's have a look at chat. La 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 la. I bet they would sell pretty well with gamers who see painting as a chore. Trust me, that kind of decal, you'd see that as even more of a chore. I mean, if it's like, you know, on a flat wing flap or something like that, because what I'll do when I do the finished plane, finished, not finished as in nationality, when I do the actual plane itself, I'm going to have a checker pattern on here and on this one. And then on the tail plane, I don't think I'm going to have checker pattern on the tail plane. I don't think. Because I probably can't be bothered by that point. I've had enough of it by that point. I'm not going to put any checkers on that bit. But we'll have them on the bombs. We'll have one on the flaps here and on the other side as well, of course. And we'll probably leave that. But if I were, you know, depending on what you're putting checkers on, if you're doing it on a smooth surface, then that's, you know, I'll get it back on the stand now. Then a decal will be a really good option. Oops. Interesting. So if I was putting a decal on here, on this bit, that'd be great. Slap it on, cut it down, done. No problem. Trim it to size. If I was doing it on, oh, hello. Everything. If I was doing it on that panel there, again, slap it down. You have to trim it around a bit. There'd be some fussing to do, but you trim it down. No problem at all. But doing it, if I was putting it, say, on that exhaust pipe, oh dear Lord, I just want to kill somebody by the end of that. Or on, you know, these bombs. You just want to have it someone with an ice pick. Give it the will to live. We're up to get a bigger brush, Fox, as Edwin Leonard. You mean like that one? No, it's different size brushes have different reasons for using them. I don't need a big fat brush for that because I need delicacy and delicateness. Let's have a look. I had a similar thing with Gundam markings. You end up with a nice decal collection that way. It says Phil Easton Skull Muse. Yeah, I've got millions of Gundam decals because they are really useful. 50 teeth to paint the checkers on a teeth if you does it neat, says Mayhem. Yeah, exactly. Splodge, says Mayhem. La 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 la. People talking about Orks. Burpage, tell a delicate burp. Raging Modeler saying he's got his 3rd edition one to paint. He's not a high priority. Tank busters, burner boys, more boys, and a battle wagon for quick transport. Yeah. I love the new Gaz, but he's a bit too priced for me. Might get him in the future though. People talking about Gazgul. Good thing to learn that you'll make mistakes and you can go over and paint over them, says Wayne. Absolutely. Absolutely. With checkers, it really is a case of back and forth, back and forth. You can see now I've taken a little break for a minute because it does get quite tiring. Just a little bit tedious, but it's worth it. But I wanted to really do this today just to, because people have asked me about how you do checkers, and it's like, in your mind, assuming not just masking and airbrushing, it seems like something that should be quick. Yeah, it won't take that long, will it? It's like, actually, it will. It's not a quick process. It's not a hard process. But it's easy to look at nicely painted checkers or any kind of pattern like freehanding stuff and think that person's clearly got massive skills. I can never do that because I've not got those massive skills. That's beyond my ability. It really isn't. If you can hold a paintbrush, you can paint checks. It's just, you have to accept that it's going to take a while and it's going to take some fiddly back and forth, and that's it. That's the thing, the secret. But you don't often get shown that. So that's why I wanted to show it today, to show you how long it takes, or can take. Show that when there's a rivet in the way, it's a right pain in the arse. Like that rivet there. I'm going to paint white first and then go back with the black. So just give you an idea for how long it does actually take and what's involved. It's just fettling now. It's just fettling. So I've made that black small square a bit too small. I've tidied up the edge, so that's the important thing. I can make it big again in a minute. On there. Fettle to your heart's content. Then when you're ready, you give it all a wash of Agrax Earthshade. What time are we on? 5. Don't know if I'll get to that point. Well, hopefully, if I can get all these done quickly enough, I'll get to the point where I can shade it and show you what happens. I hope, anyway. That one's going to be up at the top, needs more black. That one needs more black. That could do with a little bit more straighty. Also being on camera-y. But you see how you probably can't see it, but what I tend to do is, if I get a big brush, I'll show you. A big brush. Big brush that's the right shape. What I tend to do is use the brush itself. Instead of just trying to paint with the tip of a brush like this, if I want to paint a line here, instead of trying to paint like that or use the tip of the brush, what I do is I put the brush, let me imagine that line there, just above my little centre mark. I want to paint a straight line. If I try and use the tip of the brush, I'm going like this. If I try and use the side of the brush, I might be doing the same. What I tend to do is, whether I have the brush this way or that way, I tend to put the tip of the brush near the line I want to paint and then press it flat a little bit. And what you see is the way the brush splays out like that. You press it flat and keep it at constant pressure. You can then drag that along and it stays on that line. You're not doing this. If you try and paint a straight line, you go, no. If you put the brush down, so this is going to be red and that's going to be white. You put the brush down here, you get some paint here. It's not the end of the world because it's the right colour. You put the tip of the brush and just push it down till it touches the edge and then pull it along or drag it, whichever direction you're actually moving it, whether it's this way or that way. You can do it that way as well. If you put the brush flat like that, you can move it along. Works better with brushes that have not a round end, like a base brush. Well, it's got a round end, but like a base brush. Put that flat, you've got a nice flat edge. Or you can do it that way. You get a straight edge. Well, it's all about just pushing the brush down a little bit. It's all about brush control, some of it, which is why I'd say to you, you really want you get yourself some nice brushes. Nice brushes. I mean, the Games Workshop, I do like the base brush. The Artificer brush is quite nice. It's just doesn't hold a lot of paint. It can be a bit of a pain in the bum sometimes. Right, so I think there's still more to do on the white squares, but for the moment we'll put that there and we'll go back to the black. And then when we've done that black, we'll probably have a little bit more white to do. That one looks a bit... I need to do that. Okay. Back to black. Back to black. I do wish John Black wasn't quite so keen to dry up on your wet palette, but never mind. For this one, we just need to tidy up this edge here, because I want a bit wibbly wobbly. Into the white there, but again, we'll tidy that up. Sometimes you'll have a bit of a soft edge where it's a bit fuzzy. That's fine. Doesn't need to be a nice crisp surgical edge, as long as it's reasonably neat. This one here. You'll find a preferred way to orient the brush and the model when you do these. Whatever works best for you. I'm right-handed, so I prefer to have the kit painting one way and the brush going the other way. But it varies depending on the thing I'm painting as well. You see, when I go slow like that, that's me literally pushing the brush to flatten it out. A lot of it is about not doing this, but just doing, single strokes of the brush. Sometimes the trick. Water. Let's tidy up. Ooh, white square's far too small. Yeah, that needs tidying up the wrong other way. Oh well. Black square. Square looks okay. Wedged. Ooh. Right, which square was that? No idea. Yeah, I lost track there. Let me clean up a little bit there. That white square needs to be bigger. That one needs to be bigger. Cleaned up there. It's all right. Where there's already a nice clean straight edge, I'm just filling in the middle bit, so I'm not going near the edge. Bit gnarly. I know I'm not going to get it perfect, especially not while I'm live streaming, but it does say the advantage that I can weather it and chip it and things like that to cover a lot of mistakes up. Very well, what it will do. A little bit of this and a little bit of that. Some may call this junk. Me, I call them treasures. That's... I hear they're reforming the Dawn Guard. Too wet. You were, matron. Matron, far too wet. I'll be honest and say I'm getting a bit of a stiff neck from this funny angle I'm painting at. But I'm doing it for you guys. Sacrifice I make. You lot. You unruly lot of ne'er-do-wells. I hope it's been watchable. I hope you can actually see what I'm doing and it's not like the back of my head or something all the way along. Turtles all the way down. That needs to be a bit bigger there. Or does it? No, actually. That one needs to be bigger there. Ah, I see. Yes, okay. There are some bits I'm struggling to get a crisp edge where it's like there's a rivet right in the way and it's like, oh, fudge. That's that. I'll clean that up. Yeah, that bit needs cleaning up. Just boobed. So all the bits that I thought were, I need to go and put more black in there, and now I'm looking at them going, yeah, it's actually white I need to add. All part of the learning experience. At the end of the day, we're all learning all the time, all of us. The real downside is now I'm doing this, even if it comes out looking fantastic and I've got to do another one. You get the thing of, yes, I've done it, it's completed, yay. Oh wait, I've got another one to do. Oh yeah, it does kind of take the edge off a bit. You're like, oh, I'm not finished yet. You think you're done and you're not, and you're like, oh, bum. Very neat edge. And there's a stray hair. Thanks, stray hair. Them two up. Am I doing that? Excuse me. Appreciate I might be able to focus when I've got the bomb down on the bench here. The bomb, like I'm about to teach it phenomenology or something. I know some of you will get that reference, and some of you are just shameless and that you won't. That is that white one. I can tidy up. Little bits there. It's going to be a little rough around the edges, but I think might just get away with it once it's got a shade on there. Kind of know when to stop. That's one of the tricks as well. Otherwise, you could just spend days going back and forth, driving yourself mad. Apologies before you get in the top of my head. Very messy bits there, but I'm struggling to get down there with the rivets. Rivet. There. Have a quick look at chat. Bombage bomularity bomb. Edward Mayhem. I'll try my best at them, but my dyspraxia says, hi, we are going to mess up that line at a bit. Back and forth, back and forth. No pitch. I painted my first one a while the other day on a few grots and used a fine liner for some, but both turned out pretty well, but they were tiny because they were on grot guns. Yeah, fine brushes, dude. Those fine liners might be alright, but you have to keep in mind, if they're not Uniposca paint pens, if they are fine liners, that ink may, I know it says non-fading on them, that ink may look different in a year's time if it gets hit with UV a lot, so just keep that in mind. That's why I don't use that kind of pen, because they end up going blue or shiny. You've done it wrong. The check should be white and black, not black and white. Oh, god damn it. I knew I'd done something wrong. I need to inventory my Games Workshop paints. It's curious how close I am to having all of them. Do you have the paint app? Donald McKenzie gets 10 points. Hey Donald, for saying Dark Star. Yes. Bomb. I'm using them. What are we talking about? I'm using them more like inks and glazes rather than the one coat thing, and they are really nice, says Phil East. I'm starting to really like the contrast paints, getting a really nice smooth finish with them. Oh yeah, they are really nice. They're also perfect if you want to do a Borderlands metallic colours. Use things like I can't remember what they're called now. Some of the grey ones just over the white primer looks just like Borderlands metallics, because there's no metallics in Borderlands. ABL, always be learning. I walk past nuclear bombs every day at work and sleep next to a hill that houses them, says Donald McKenzie. You probably shouldn't have told us any of that, but we'll pretend we didn't hear it much. Right, white time. More cleanup. Back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. What we're talking about today, what's the trick? The trick is back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back. If somehow you haven't figured that out yet, that's what the trick is. Back and forth and back and forth. Boots and shoes and boots and shoes and boots and shoes. Back and forth and back. Right. Bit done. We'll see if I can make this the final go. And then we can do the weathering on top. Get one done. Not really weathering, but I count, when I'm doing checker pattern, I count an Agrax Earthshade layer as part of the checker pattern, regardless of what weathering's to come later on. I count an Agrax Earthshade coat as an integral part of that, but kind of thinned a bit. Hard to explain. You'll see, hopefully. Try and get it to that point by the end of today. If it's not perfect, I can live with it. I'd rather be able to show you everything than have it perfect and only showed you half of it. Kind of anchoring the bomb on the table. And it means I'm slightly out of focus, but good anchor point. Bit there, the rivets are really being a pain in the bum. I have to throw a few little paint chips on that bit, I think. Oh yes. Oh yes. I'm also acutely aware there's some bits that will be painted over with metallics and stuff as well. So some of the rough edges where there'll be like little metal details and things. So fine. And there. At the end of the day, you're just kind of painting shapes. It's drawing shapes and colouring in. That's all you're doing. Don't be scared by it. Don't be unnerved by it. You're just painting pretty shapes and colouring in. That's all you're doing. Remember? Rot with the hair squig. Rot with the hair squig. 10 cents. Sorry. Couldn't resist. Get this white course done. And I'll try not to look at the bits where I've been handling the model and rubbing all the paint off. And dear Lord. Just not think about that bit, eh? Apologies if any of this is covered up by my hand while I'm painting. Diddly bomb, a diddly bomb, a diddly bomb. Super match game. Bit too thick, that paint. A bit more water. Into the proceedings. Now, I'm not hoping to get a perfectly opaque white and a perfectly opaque black coat here. I will have some fuzziness around some of the edges. That's fine, don't worry about that. That will all blend away shortly. Shortly, they say. When if you want absolute perfect checkers, it's really a case of masking and airbrushing. Trust me. That's also another layer of insanity, trying to mask off checkers. Yeah. Unless you have pre-made checker tape, where it's a checker pattern, you just peel some bits off. It can be just a trick in of itself, just to make strips of tape all the same weight and size and width and stuff. That can be a challenge in of itself. In and of itself. Small now, I need to make back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Just fettling and fiddling, that's all we're doing. In reality, when people eventually see this, they'll see it from 3 feet away, underneath the wing of the plane anyway. I'm not going to get that close to it, so yes. I go a bit Jeremy Paxman there. Yes. Oops. Head. I do apologise if all you've seen is the back of my head all afternoon. Or the back of my hand. There are reasons why you should see the back of my head, but me streaming is not one of them. This bit down here, but I can't get past all these rivets. Okay. But like I said, keep in mind, if you're painting something smaller, the back and forth will be less intense than I'm doing here. Only because these are so big. It's like a rock and a hard place. Big checkers mean it's easier to get them looking like nice squares, but it also means it's harder some ways because there's a lot more faffing around. To tidy them up. All I can hear in my head now is the blankety blank music. Super match game. Boom. That one up. Okay. This bit here is quite egregious. Much better. Add up for the black, that's not a problem. Quite there. And we'll tidy that up in a minute. For some reason, the phrase bed, bath, and beyond is also stuck in my head for no reason whatsoever right now. I've got no idea why. I think it's a chain of shops. They don't sponsor me. I'll quite happily take money off anybody, but yeah, I don't know why that's in there. You'll see sometimes that I knowingly go into the black areas with the white when I'm trying to get a straight line. Sometimes it's just the easiest way to get a nice crisp corner. Right, almost done on the whites. Then we've got a little bit of black to do, and then I think we're done then for that bit. Just about, I think. Okay, so looking on camera. Oh, looking pretty good on telly. Right, so bit there. Oops. Bed, bath, and beyond is in my head. No idea whatsoever. Okay. Touch of black in some parts. Last little fettles. Just these bits here. Tiny fettly bits. Unless, of course, I mess some of these up and then I'll have to go back with the white again, but never mind, that's part of the game. I've just seen a white bit that I need to go and tidy up. Oh, there we go. A little bit of a splodge there. Splodge. Not to worry. Not to worry. It's great. It's fabulous. I do apologise. I've not been quite as active with the chat today. I'm sure you forgive me given that I'm doing fiddly nonsense. Now, very important tonight. Of course, at 8:30, it is Chris and Dad. It's Chris and Ted, sorry. Doing Warhammer Sunday. I assume it's on, I don't know whose channel it's on. It's Chris Ted or Ted channel, I'm not sure. One of the two. But yes, Chris and Ted tonight. However, at 6 PM tonight, or is it 6 or 6:15, Dad? I'm not sure. You do need to make sure to tune into Scale Your Models channel because he's back at the bench with his in-between show. Now, not only is he doing a little in-between show at, I assume, 6 or 6:15. Do clarify in the chat, Dad, if you would. Not only is he doing an in-between show, which is good to see him back at the bench, he's also doing a co-op stream with Colin, Festa 67's workshop. So make sure to check it out. I'm sure Dad's already put in chat what time it is and stuff. Hey, dropping it. I always line up a piece I need to fix and then I drop it and forget where I was. Never awesome. A bit there, I think. Little lines to clean up, little bits here and there. Can make that stronger. I think. Last couple of little white bits I've just spotted in the last few minutes. I think we can kind of leave it there. Last little white bits. I spotted and I lost them again now. You watch. I'll be like, oh crap, I can't remember where they are. No, there's a white bit I've just cleaned up, and I can see the black bit needs some cleanup as well. There really is an endless cycle. You would be here all day, quite easily, if you don't at some point decide to say enough and call it done. But this is all it's about. Can't really get in there though, because that needs black there, that needs black, that bit. It's just tidying up now. This is what you don't see. When they say, I'll go and get them painted and we'll be back in a minute with the next step. What you don't see is 6 hours of fettling while the producer sat there twiddling his thumbs and the cameraman goes and has a cup of tea. See? That bit up. Sleep. We'll stop dropping it. Bit of black. Back in black again. There is no end. There is truly no end. It's truly what you could describe as a Sisyphean task sometimes. Doing checkers. I can see chat moving, but I can't do anything with it right at the minute. However, I do have to tell you that I probably won't be doing this ever again because it's a really uncomfortable situation with my neck right now. To be able to do this without getting my head in shot all the time where the camera is. Right, there's another bit I need to clean up, and that bit was... I'll find it in a minute when I've decided to stop. You watch. Like that. I'm just getting super nonsense about it now. I'm being just silly with it. Could have stopped ages ago. Oops. That'll be some more cleanup. Clean up on aisle arse. Little bits here are hard because you can't get the brush into the crisp edge. Hoping the shade will hide all that badness. Okay, I think that's about as much as my sanity can take. Knowing, of course, I've got another one of these to do. Boo. This one I keep going back and forth on. It's not quite straight, so then I straighten it, and it's not quite straight the other way, and it's like, oh, for crying out loud. Right, step away from that one, Fox. Just leave it. Leave it now. Right, I think we'll leave that as it is. I think that will do quite nicely for that bit. So, Paul says, doesn't need to be perfect, Fox, just discernible as a checkered pattern. I know. Well, I do want to sell this eventually, so. Crap sticks next Sunday. I'm 39, says Mayhem. Happy birthday. You need to make sure you remind us so we can all take the mic. I mean, congratulate you. Right. Quick blast of the hairdryer, because we're in a rush now. Quick blast of the hairdryer. Now here's the trick. Get yourself some. Get yourself. Where the hell is it? I'll find a different one then. Okay. Get yourself some. Not Reichland flesh shade. Where's me? Oh, where's me? There is it. Oh, there it is. It's behind me water. Some Agrax Earthshade. Get yourself some. Get yourself some. Knowing where it is always a good start. Get yourself some Lamian Medium. So you want some My Alert Cake and some Labia Mermaids. Here we go. Now this isn't weathering. This is just part of the colouring process. But this is something I do as part of the colouring process. What I do is I put my lid back on my brush. Remember, when you're using a brush, before you wash it at the end, store it that way up all the time. All the ones I'm using are going back that way. I'm going to use my big brush. In fact, no, I'll use my shade brush. I'll use a shade brush. Put my little palette. You don't want to use the wet palette for this. I've got a palette pad here, so we'll just use that. And what I'm going to do is Labia Mermaids, Agrax shade, Anyway, nice noise. Get some of the Agrax. 3 brushfuls of that, and we'll take, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 brushfuls of Labia Mermaids. And always wash your brush between the two and mix them together. What I want to do is give this some, this isn't we're not weathering it. This is effectively post shading, really. I'm going to go over the whole thing very quickly without knocking my thing everywhere. Right, that's annoying now. Anchor that down. In fact, let's just throw that in the bin because it's annoying me. Let's start that again. Very quickly, because it's going to get messy if I don't. Right. Agrax shade. 1, 2. I've forgotten now. 3. Let's call it 3. Oops. Don't spill the Agrax shade, Fox. Wash the brush. Labia Mermaids. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got to be quick because I don't want the stuff I put on there to dry so quickly. Mix them together. Try that again, shall we? I'm going to get this on. I'll get it on there. Oops, don't really want to get it on the red if I can avoid it, but it probably will a bit of it go on there. I don't want to use just neat Agrax because that's too dark for what I'm after. I'm using this as kind of a glaze, kind of a tint, and just a way to bring it all together. So I'm not really fussed about its shading properties, although it is filling in the panel line there quite nicely and get rid of all the evidence. And what I'm going to do now is get myself some water, just water, push it away from the centre a little bit, or push it away from one direction. Can I push it towards the edges perhaps? A little bit of water. Now if it's a simple flat surface, this is a lot easier because you can push it towards the edges. And now what I want to do is get my hair dry. Apologies, it's going to be hair dry time. Takes a while. Sorry. Fly faster! Fly faster, it's fine! Okay, so we're going to get some more. Some water in there as well, in that medium. Why not? Again, not being careful. Getting it on. It's going to look a bit scruffy, and that's fine. We've got other stuff to paint on here, and again, we're not doing this as a shade. We're doing it really as a tint. Get the water again. Just water on its own now, and just push it around a bit. Try and filter it out, because we're almost doing it like a excuse me, like a kind of pro shade. So we're putting it into this recess here, and we're building it up around this bit. But because we're dripping it wet with water, hopefully we're not going to get any big straight edges. I'm trying to avoid the red, having it built up on the white and black area. Kind of chaotic. That's the way I like it. And then we'll just tweak it a little bit. I'll leave that now for a minute just to do its thing. I need to keep an eye on it because I don't want it to pool up anywhere. Let me go back in with the hairdryer again. Apologies. La 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 la. Just get it to the point where it's not running anywhere. Okay. Dry, damn you, dry! There's one bit that likes to be awkward, isn't there? Okay. Okay, so we'll get some more Lamian medium. One, two, three, four. Just reactivate this a little bit. Oh. More. May seem weird that I'm doing it this way. Trust me, when it's finished, you'll get what I mean. It'll make sense. Then water. Just water. Push it away to the edges. And it kind of does count as weathering a bit, but it's more just to blend it all into each other. We'll get rid of any excess water now with a dry brush. It's kind of an instinctive thing. I shall now give it a bit of a zizz with the hairdryer. Apologies, one last hairdryer session. Ba ba boom, ba 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 ba. Little bit of fussing with the brush. Avoid any streakies. I'm just touching the little streaky bits. Soften them up a little bit. Sorry about this, folks. La 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 la. I think it's marginally better than giving you just silence. Vince, I give you. It's not fully dry, but not fully finished yet either. But I hope you can see it's made it look a bit mucky, which is fine because that's what we want anyway. But it also, I don't know if you'll notice, you might not see on camera, but what it's done, even to my eye, is it's kind of softened it's blurred the lines between the black and the white, which makes the black and the white look a lot neater. Any bits where there's like a little bit of the black showing through the white, it kind of blends it all together. It's hard to explain, but the last step now is to come back to the wet palette. This is where we want to. You can get your white. In this case, it's white Scar, which has never been opened before, it seems. White Scar is a horrible paint, but it serves a purpose. Or you could just come back with the all through and grey if you wanted to. And what you can do now, using a big brush, big boy brush, is get this nice and wet, thinned. You want a big brush for this because it's not subtle. Is get your nice and thin white Scar and just get some in the centres. Maybe not that thin, eh? Get it in the centre of these panels. A bit too thin. Okay, maybe not that thin. You want a big brush because you want to be able to get a bit of paint on there and then fuss it. Actually, that didn't really work. Never mind. In fact, don't do that because, yeah, that totally didn't work. I've not let it dry long enough. Well, in fact, what I probably will do is the all through and grey. You want to build it back into the centre of the panels a little bit. Let me get another brush. That isn't actually going to work. Okay, not a problem. Right, with the grey. Different panel. Let's try this one. That's better. Yeah, put a little bit in the middle and just blend it out a little bit. And all you're doing is you're just giving it some little bit of a highlight. You don't have to do this bit. You don't have to do it on every single one. A little bit of a highlight just to pop it out a little bit there. And that is how I do checker patterns. Now there will be weathering that goes on top of this anyway. Oops. White on the black there. There will be weathering that goes on top of this anyway. It doesn't matter if it looks a bit streaky or patchy or there's some marks here and there. I need to let that dry for longer actually. Yeah, this is it will be weathered later on anyway. That's just really to blend that shade there, really just blends them together and makes it look a little bit weathered already. But there'll be other weathering that goes on there. So by the time it's fully weathered and everything else is painted, I had a panic. I saw that bit and thought I was rubbing the paint off, but it's not. It's the bit I haven't painted. So yeah. Yeah, there is more weathering to come, so that weathering will make it blend away even more anyway. But by the time it's fully weathered, it's got everything else on there. That should just look like a nice, slightly dirty, black and white checkered bomb. Unfortunately, I've got to do that one now. Oh. It's always satisfying when you finish something like that, but then you realise you've only done one of them and you've got two to do. Yeah. Let's have a look and quick last look at chat though. So what do you think? Does that look all right? How does it look? I know that bit's going to be bronze, I think, or metal. The skull there will be bronzed. I've just not bothered being neat with them. But you can see that checker pattern in the background now. Should look pretty good once it's up and under the wing. Look. Goes under the wing like that. Kaplunk. You'll have a nice black and white bomb under the wing there. How cool is that? Looks quite good. And that's 3 hours. So you can see how long it takes. It's not a quick process. It's not a complicated process, but it's not quick. It does take a while. Let's have a quick last look at chat. Where are we? I've been lurking, but I got Fox on the big telly, says Lynn. I wish I was 39 Andy, says Dad. All the streams in the Royal Rumble in one day. It's a veritable festival of fun, minus the Royal Rumble, obviously. I don't know what the Royal Rumble is. Is that a wrestling thing? I don't do wrestling in sports. Ian's car says I'll be 29 in 9 months. 28 in 9 months. Good God. I was never that young. I'll be 47 in September. Birthdays now seem to come and go with no fanfare of any kind, says Paul Di Tommaso. Yeah, I'll be 50 this year. Yeah, and I'll probably just have a pot noodle. I'm here, you can start now, says Dan. You're a bit slow there, dude. You've taken too long. You've missed all of this goodness. You've missed all of this checker pattern painting. I'll get the staff, can you? Sorry for caps. I'm working on Photoshop and forgetting that I have caps on, says Lynn. Lol. Hi, Chris and Dan. Oh, Chris at Gross Models is in. I'm here. You can start now, says Chris as well. Thank you for coming in, Chris. Welcome. Dan Kramer says the Dakaboom Whiz Bang Superfly Zoom Bowit Dabba da Bang Diggy 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 said the boogie said jump the boogie jet. Moving on. I'd keep taking the pills. You did that quicker than my Baneblade, says Colin. Imagine painting your entire Baneblade checker pattern. No, you'd die. Looks rather good, says the owner's car. Thank you very much. Wait, did he paint that pattern? I thought it was a decal. No, that bit's going to be gold. That bit's going to be silver. The plates on there, but that's just hand painted checker pattern. It's hand painted. You missed it, dude. You missed the secret. It started off like that. But you can see how, despite the fact we haven't used white, we've used greys, and with a bit of weathering, it looks like a slightly dirty black and white. But like I'm saying, you don't need to use a white to do black and white. Yeah, I made a bit of a mess that there. That didn't quite work, that bit. Don't try that bit. I'll cover that with a decal or something, or some chipping. It'd be fine. We all make mistakes from time to time. There you go. So lastly, I've got to paint those details on. Get that sorted. But I think my job for this evening will be to paint the checker pattern on the other one, and then paint the checker pattern on. Oh god, it's gonna take forever. And on them and that, I'll film it on this one, and then I've got to paint it on that one. So basically, by the end of this week, I might have finished painting the checker patterns. I don't know how people do it when they cover a whole thing in checker patterns. It's like, wow. Right, swig of coffee. Like I say, did we say in chat? Did you say, Dad, if it was 6 or 6:15? I will do my best to come and watch. I do have to go make the dinner, of course, and I'll be dinner, so I might be a little bit late. But don't forget, of course, like I said, Dad and Colin. So Dad and Festa67 are doing their stream either 6 or 15:15. Nice to see Dad back at the bench, so do make sure to go and watch that. Obviously, do lots of likings and subscribings. I shall be watching. Chris and Ted will be back at 8:30 tonight. Chris, is it on your channel or Ted's channel? Dad says he's on at 6 p.m. So yes, Ted and Chris at 8:30, either on Skipper Scale Models or Gross Models, one of the two. Dad, of course, is on Scaly Models. You go and check all that. So that's all your Sunday viewing worked out. We will, of course, me, Chris, Colin, and Ted be back on Monday, tomorrow, for the E-Models Monday show. That'll be at 9 p.m. tomorrow night. I think it's Chris's What's in Store. Yeah, so get your thinking brain ready. Throughout the course of the week, I will crack on with this jet thing. I want to try and have it finished by the end of this week. Because I've only got the simple base colours down for now. I want to try and get it done this week and filmed and uploaded and sent to Goblin Gaming, but I don't know yet. So don't expect any streams from me probably until next Sunday. Although if I do get this finished in advance, I'll be able to do a Friday and Saturday stream. But I'm going to try and crack on and get this thing done and get it done and dusted. So you might see me during the week, but if not, I'll post up pictures on Facebook and Twitter and everywhere and the social medias and stuff. So yeah. Chris says that Ted and him are on Chris's channel, Gross Models, tonight, so make sure to check that out. And then, of course, I will be back, if not before then, next Sunday with Warhammer Sunday, when we'll get back to building the Space Marine, whatever it was, what's it called? Land Raider Crusader. The one that I was kind of enjoying building, but not fully, because it's old. Yeah. So we shall see. But that's going to do me for today, I think. So, massive thank you to everyone that's been watching. Before we go, of course, big thank you to all the people that make my content possible. Again, thank you to my patrons at patreon.com/modelmakingguru. The address is there. And to my channel members who make this content and this channel possibly exist. Looking rubbish now. Big thanks. And if you want to become a patron, go to that address there and become a patron. Or if you want to, just press the join button underneath any one of my videos. Either way, you'll get early access to a lot of my video content, advert free, occasional exclusive stuff, and some other bits and bobs. Also, it's worth helping out and supporting the channel. It pays my wages. I do this for a living, so it keeps me in food and drinks and electricity bills and things. So please do consider becoming a patron or a channel member. Don't forget, of course, I do have an Amazon store as well. Links to that in the description below the video. As an Amazon associate, I do earn from qualifying purchases. So you can pick up lots of good things, model making stuff and otherwise in my Amazon store. If you need something that's not in there, just give me a shout. I can add it. It will take me mere moments to add it. It's not a problem at all. So do give it a go. But until next time, I shall say thank you very, very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Enjoy seeing Dad and Colin in a bit, and then Ted and Chris later on. And we'll see you all tomorrow night for the E-Model show. But until then, I shall say, let me make sure my buttons are still working.
Slap it on.
Yes, buttons are still working. Yes. So thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves. Go make something awesome. I do recommend this boom dagger jet whiz bang. There's so many variations you can make, and it's great fun. It's great fun. Yeah, take care of yourselves. Go make something awesome. Go be awesome. You already are. And until next time, adios amoebas. See you soon.